Did you guys do that duo?
Mm-hmm.
Shoot.
Technical difficulties,
Yep, 1 second, everybody.
upgraded the security. Be there momentarily.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. You guys ready?
Yes.
It is March 7th, 2023 at 6, just a little after 6:30. We're going to start the select board meeting now. As you can see, both Karen Canfield and Mark Kern are unable to attend tonight. Oh, I'm sorry, Karen Conley. They have prior engagements and they will not be here, so we'll do the best we can with what we have. So I'd like to call the meeting to order and acceptance of the agenda.
So moved.
Everyone, Mr. Goodrich, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous, 3-0. Before we get started, I'd like to read this statement. The Scituate Select Board is committed to providing an environment of respect during meetings. We ask all members to interact in a polite manner, even when there is disagreement. We value the participation of our community and want all participants, including marginalized and minoritized communities, to feel welcome and respected. We ask our committee members and all who participate to commit to these standards to support and respect our community. That being said, open up to walk-ins. Are there any walk-ins here this evening? All right, moving right along, we'll go to the report of the town administrator.
Good evening. We'll start as always with our water update. The reservoirs are +6 last week we were +4.5. Factory pond is at +6.5 up from 5.25. Average daily demand went up to 1.17 million gallons a day, which was up from last week's 998,000 gallons per day. Some of this increase was due to a large water main break we had Saturday morning, an 8-inch pipe at the intersection of Turner and Otis. This is one of the lowest points in our system, led to brown water and pressure problems throughout the town. The water department first noticed it when the levels of the tank started to drop. They went out there, they did a great job in the lousy weather to repair it, locate it. We also want to thank the Scituate Police Department who helped us find the leak. The reason it was so impactful on our system is this end of town is up here, the water main break was down here. It's like pulling a plug on a tub and all the water starts going in that direction, which caused all the problems in the system. So we got that all fixed. We'll take some look at making some permanent fixes, but good job by the water department to get that done. The bids were open for the Route 3A water main project last week. We had 8 contractors bid in the project, which was pretty good. The apparent low bidder was less than the estimate provided by the contractor, by a consultant, I'm sorry. We're reviewing the bids right now for compliance, and we'll be back probably 2 meetings from now to make an award, hopefully get started on that. That is a new raw water line from Old Oak and Bucket to the site of the new water treatment plant at Forge Pond, and a new replacement service line for 3A. So that's good news. They came in lower than expected. We'll keep an eye on that and see what comes back after we vetted that contract. Very good news. St. Patrick's Day Parade, Sunday, March 19th, kicks off at 1 o'clock. The parade starts in the intersection of Cudworth and First Parish and proceeds down First Parish to the harbor and ends at the Harbor Community Building. Great event, hoping for good weather. If you want further details, you go to weloveaparade.com. Also on the 19th, all good things must come to an end, so all dog walkers and walkers of Widows Walk. Sunday, March 19th is the last day of the course will be open to walkers. Starting on the 20th, the course staff will be ready the course for opening, and right now the tentative opening date for the golf course is March 31st. And that's weather dependent. So, walk is off, golf is on, and we'll get right back to work out the golf course. Reminder, the annual town elections on May 20th, 23rd, 23, Scituate High School. Nomination papers are available in the town clerk's office for any registered voter interested in running. Call the town clerk at 781-545-9743 if you're interested in taking out nomination papers. Papers must be returned with at least 100 signatures of registered voters to the town clerk's office by 5 p.m. on March 31st. The online questionnaire for Pier 44 has closed. We received almost 1,400 responses to that survey. The results of the questionnaire can be found on the Shark page of the town website. You have 20 minutes to get to the last meeting. There's a public meeting tonight at the library at 7 o'clock to go over the public information session. Those are being, I believe one of them was recorded today at the senior center. So we have those, we'll post those later on. Energy consultant, Good Energy, along with a member of our Community Choice Aggregation Committee, will be hosting a live presentation via Zoom and Facebook on Wednesday, March 22nd at 6:30. This will be frequently asked questions about our community aggregation program, and it will be recorded and available on the town website. As I updated you tonight, we will have the contract for the 1931 Lantern Room replacement and repair work at the lighthouse. Rick Pomeroy, OPM, will be on to talk about that. It came in significantly lower than what we estimated, so we are in good shape to get that project awarded and get it done. Lastly, the Cole Parkway project is proceeding. They have almost all the docks in the water. Once all the docks are in, they'll rewire the electrical, they'll put the electrical conduits back in, they'll put the plugs back in, and we'll be ready to go. So that is in good shape. We are on time. We are on budget for that right now, and that is funded through a grant from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the town's waterways fund. And that is what I have for this evening.
Great. Any questions for Jim? Any questions from the audience? All right, we'll keep moving then. We have a discussion vote for an outdoor entertainment permit for Empower Her Luminaria on May 12th. Is Kelly Jo Sunday here?
Here.
Come on up.
Do I? Am I up here?
Yeah, come on,
Okay.
Mike.
Sorry, this is my first Scituate town meeting.
Just your name and address, would be great.
Oh, sorry, so my name is Kelly Jo Sunday, and my address is 19 Whitney Woods Lane in Cohasset. So I'm interloper, but I'm looking for approval for our special event application and our outdoor entertainment permit. Should I give?
Yeah, just tell us a little bit about the event.
Okay, oh, perfect. So I'm assuming hopefully people are familiar with Empower Her, which was started by Carrie Belvin here in Scituate. So this is our third annual year doing this fundraiser at the Lighthouse. So we have hopefully around 700 luminary bags that we have around 50 volunteers between 4 and 9 p.m. put out. It's a bag with a little bit of sand in honor of or in memory of someone, all hand delivered prior to the event. So we have volunteers that put up the bags, put a little sand, and then it's a battery operated candle gets turned on and dropped in. Drone coverage and photographs taken, and this year the only change we're looking for is to have 2 food trucks on site to sort of lend an atmosphere for people to come and stay and really enjoy the beauty of the event, the display that's out there. And then everything is cleaned up by our volunteers, taken off by 9 p.m. the latest. So we're in and out, but hopefully beautiful. We've acoustic music also, that's our other piece that requires the outdoor entertainment. We have a beautiful magical event.
Great. Is all that gonna be right in the parking lot by the lighthouse? Where's the food trucks and the entertainment?
The food trucks and entertainment are in the parking lot by the lighthouse, and then we understand the construction may be going on this year, so there may be a section of that that's unavailable to us, so we'll use, it sounds like most likely, if you're looking at the lighthouse, the area more to the right, kind of on the beach and the rocks, which we haven't utilized in the past, when we sort of just go up the jetty and to the left, but it sounds like this year we'll probably go a little right and still use a push of the closer to the lighthouse portion of the jetty.
Or the bags?
The bags, yes.
Okay, so
And then, sorry, the food trucks and entertainment here in the parking lot.
So the bags are gonna start where the houses stop,
Yes.
along the walkway, around the lighthouse, out on the jetty a little bit, and then back on the other jetty.
To the extent we can get to it, where they're traditional, but yes. and it's safe.
Awesome. Any questions for Kelly Jo?
Question, one for you and one for you, right? It's a wonderful event, you guys have really, done a great job the last couple of years, to raise the profile. Is it also happening in other cities on the same day?
Not the same day, but it's happening in 10 cities nationwide again. It's very similar to last year, but not necessarily the same day. So they're spread out a little bit, and we're reaching a little towards Father's Day, because if you're familiar, Kara's been able to expand to boys now as well, and transgender people as well, so of any parent loss. We're kind of trying to spread it out a little around Mother's Day, but kind of get towards Father's Day.
Extraordinary, the impact of the group, so well done. I only saw a motion for the outdoor entertainment permit, is the special permit tonight as well, or did I miss
No.
that?
The permit, the only thing on the agenda that requires a select board approval is the outdoor entertainment permit. Because it's a year after year event, it's approved by the town administrator.
That's,
Sorry.
knew there was a
And the food trucks will be approved by Board of
The
Health.
board of health, correct.
And there's just
No, it's a wonderful event, wonderful organization, and
And Scituate Police, our outstanding Scituate Police Department will also be facilitating where the trucks are versus the construction. Have already spoken with. Or will be speaking.
yes, it was super helpful.
Great, well, great event, great cause. Wife's been involved for years, so I think it's great. Any questions from the audience? Seeing none, can I have a motion?
Move to grant an outdoor entertainment permit to empower her for Mother's Day Luminaria event at the Lighthouse, Friday, May 12th, 2023, from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. with entertainment being provided by acoustic musicians. We're gonna do, it's not pending approval anymore.
No.
Okay, period.
second,
Second by Mr. Goodrich, further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous, 3-0. Thank you for coming in and best of luck.
Thank you.
You can have your passport stamped that way.
All right, next topic is an interview. We are interviewing someone for the DEI committee, town representative applicant Christina Gilberti. Come on up.
Yeah.
Hello,
How are you?
I am well, but I am also nervous. It's nice to see you.
Good, there's only about 8 people watching, so.
Yay! I can
Um,
handle that.
So you are applying to be on the DEI committee as a town representative and you currently work at the library.
Yes,
Awesome. Why don't you tell us, a little bit, just quickly, what you do at the library and then why you want to get involved in this cause?
absolutely. So I've actually been working with the town at the library since 2017. I was promoted to circulation supervisor in 2020. So I manage the staff that are in that department. There's about 8 people on staff right now in circulation, and I also pretty much like oversee the circulation department in and of itself. I'm also a shop steward for the AMS union in town as well. So I'd like to be a part of this committee because I feel like throughout my life, I really do try to advocate for, equity and justice. I feel like kindness is extremely important. I feel like respecting people is very important, and teamwork is really important. And that's what I look for when I'm hiring, candidates at the library. Like, I want somebody to be respectful and kind. And in, my current position, I really do like to advocate for people and to kind of be a voice for them. As a steward right now, you are really, advocating for equity in of itself. You want to make sure that it's equal for everybody, not just a select group of people. That's just something that's just very, very important to me. So I would like to be a part of this committee just because of that mission statement of itself, that's extremely important. I was reading the handbook too, I think that was on the website for boards and committees. And I noticed that you would be looking for an applicant who would want to improve the quality of life in their community. And while I don't necessarily live in Scituate, I do work here, so I would certainly want to, improve for the community for sure. And I think that this committee itself really does try to strive for that, and I think that's really important.
Great. Well, I think on top of that, you work at a very focal point
Yes,
that interacts a lot and you probably have a really good opinion in terms of how interaction should occur, does occur, that sort of stuff. So as a
Absolutely.
town, you're probably a very good representative of that interaction.
Thank you.
Any questions for Christina?
Just what, is there anything in particular that kind of, why, it's almost the why now question, is there an event you saw, or just you heard there was an opening, or, you know, just had some events in the library and it kind of broke your interest, or I don't know.
Yeah, I
what's the
had,
spark?
sure, I had, definitely saw an email go through, and I talked to Bob Clark about it a bit more yesterday, and, a couple weeks ago, I think now. And it was something that I just wasn't really sure if I was ready to do, you know, I think it had been popped up before, maybe recently. But I think I was kind of settling into my union position. I want to make sure that I, you know, was focused on that and make sure that I knew what I was doing in that role. Now I feel more comfortable and settled into that. So I kind of felt like maybe now was, you know, a step for me to try, you know, something new and to kind of really advocate for the community as a whole, and maybe not just my staff or the department or people that are in AMS. I thought it might be a nice change, and I'd be happy to, you know, serve in that community.
Were you answering the question? Thank you.
Is there any, agenda is the wrong word, but are there any topics that you'd like to get involved with initially, or is there anything that you see that is an area that you think this, this group could move in that direction?
Yeah, sure. I watched one of, I think the most recent meeting that they had in February. And I had been talking about this too. They were talking about translation, you know, on the town website. At the very, very bottom, you kind of translate, you know, the website into maybe your preferred language. So I thought that was something, you know, which is, I just hadn't thought of, and I was like, that's a really, really good idea. The library has the same thing, the website, it's right at the bottom, but there, maybe they can move it to the top. But also expanding on that in terms of, oh, maybe if there's mail that goes out to, you know, somebody in town, and maybe, you know, English is their preferred language, or it's even something that they don't necessarily, you know, speak. So having other, like maybe that person, you know, speaks Spanish, and having something go out to them that's in their language, it's sort of that like inclusive, you know, act, and even though it might seem small, it is maybe big to somebody. So I think that was just a really, really great idea. I was, you know, just hadn't occurred to me. So if, you know, chosen to be in this position, I would try to, you know, sort of listen to what the group's working on currently, seeing what their goals are, and kind of seeing how I would fit into that. I know they had been meeting with, you know, other groups in town, maybe like BW or, you know, Board of Health or something. But I think I would really just try to help in any way I can in regards to what their, you know, current goals are, essentially.
Awesome. Well, the next step will be, we're not gonna vote this evening, we'll wait for the rest of the board to come back,
Sure.
and then discuss it. And, Lauren, is this the only interview that we have for this slot?
Yes.
Super, so thank you for coming in,
Thank you.
and, like I said, we'll probably vote at our next meeting and discuss it a little bit more there. You don't have to come in for that, but
Okay.
we just wanted to come here.
Glad to hear.
Where you going? You did a great job, I mean, you wanna come back.
Thank you very much. I appreciate
Awesome.
your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Nice to
Take
meet you
care.
all.
Likewise. Moving right along, we have a discussion and vote on a sewer betterment abatement. Nancy, you wanna, Joe, you wanna come up?
Sure, I'd love to.
Well, night and finance, so we're coming out of course.
Sorry, Pam? Yes, of course.
To keep it brief, you have the background and the timeline that Joe put together with this betterment. It's been issued to the assessor's office as well as the treasurer collector's office. Referred out to town council Cindy Amaro before she left. Her recommendation is for the select board as sewer commissioners to abate the unpaid balance. We referred it back out to Kevin Freitag, the new town council, to see what his take on it was. He concurred for different reasons and recommended to the board, which you have as recommendation in your paperwork, that the unpaid balance be abated for parcel 4823.
Joe, do you have anything, or Pam, anything to add to that?
I can confirm, I've been inside the property, I was in there right before the new owner purchased it back in 2018, and it is a single family. Single families usually only have one bedroom.
I'm sorry, only one.
One bedroom, by granting this abatement, that property would now have one bedroom. And all of the mess that happened prior to that purchase will be gone for once.
Any questions from the board?
Now, thank you for putting the timeline together, it's been a lot of holiday, definitely made it clear, thank you.
A little too clear in places, but
If you have any.
Yeah, no, it's pretty, the timeline helps just going through, you're right, the complexity of all the attorneys were looking at it, just for folks at home, it kind of spells it out that it's pretty clear cut for me at least.
I agree, seems like fixing it up.
we're writing, you're writing it
Right.
on. Yes.
All right, well, if we don't have, Jim, do you have anything to add, or are you good?
Good.
All right. Any questions from the audience? Seeing none, if not, can I have a motion?
Move that the remaining unpaid sewer betterment on parcel 48-02-003 of $7,809.92 be abated as advised by town council.
Second.
Second by Ms. Canfield, further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous, 3-0. Thank you for putting the work in that, Joe.
No, thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. And now we'll just keep going with you guys. This is an update and review on tax title possessions.
Yes. So as the board is well aware, when Pam in her role as treasurer collector forecloses on a property for non-payment of taxes, it becomes a tax title possession. And 61 half doesn't add it. In cases involving a house, Pam proceeds directly with scheduling an auction of the property because the town is not in the business of being a landlord. But when cases of just land, nothing tends to happen to it, it's just an accounting entry. Joe puts it into the name of the town and the assessor system, and I put it into a different account on the general ledger. But there is a significant amount of money that is potentially being wasted here. There are 40 parcels that are currently identified as tax title possessions, and the total tax liabilities or the amount of taxes that were owed to the town in foreclosure is a little over $600,000. So in lieu of the taxes, the town was provided with the land by land court. The combined fiscal 23 assessed value of these are $4.75 million. So this is the assessed value. Since it's town-owned land, no one's applying for an abatement, so don't get really excited about the $4.75 million. So the four of us started this project over a year ago, and by the four of us started, it means I sent out an email and said, hey, I have a great project for you two to do. And they worked really hard, and they put together the property record cards, property details, and maps for all of the parcels. And collectively, with Jim, we evaluated all of the parcels together. And of the 40 parcels, one was misclassified, and many others were deemed as not suitable candidates for sale, as they couldn't be located on assessor's maps, and that's common. These were, when the GIS mapping and regular mapping came in, these parcels kind of get lost, or they're underwater, those types of parcels. So there were 21 parcels out of the 40 that were identified as potential candidates for sale at auction. Of those parcels, we then sent them out to the land use departments, DPW, Conservation Planning and Building. Conservation identified one candidate as under their custody and control, so we'll be looking into that a little bit more closely. And DPW identified one candidate as a potential future site for a pump station, so we certainly don't want to take that out of the mix for them. So what are we going to do with these tax title possessions? Well, Pam already has the authority that you have granted to her as custodian of your tax title possessions to move forward with an auction to dispose of the parcels. Right now, the parcels have a value of $3.1 million in assessed value, and the tax liability at the time was just over $534,000. In your packets, we have this spreadsheet, which is just about as easy to read in your packets as it is on screen. But these are the comments from all the land use departments that were provided, saying the particulars about these properties on their first blush look. For the most part, there's nothing wild and crazy here. There are no structures. This is all land that someone would the owners chose not to pay the taxes or could not pay the taxes and let it go. So if it was a gold mine, they probably would have come back with a look and tried to vacate the judgment and pay the taxes. So, we're gonna run through the maps with you very quickly. On this first map, this looks like it's wonderful. The two parcels are the 4 small lots where the red arrows are. But if you add the overlay of the wetlands, you can see why the property owner probably let this go. There's really not much there. At auction, probably the only person interested might be the butters across, the direct butters, the people across the street who just want to make sure that no one ever cuts anything down. This particular lot on 407 Hathaway Road, you know, what somebody could do with it, I don't, the land use departments were a little sketchy on it, but either one of the abutters might be interested in having that land to add to their own parcel. Again, we have some on Brooklyn Road.
Is that buildable, the one on that one?
It's questionable with the frontage, pork chop lot. So anything here that someone could make something of, it's for them. You would buy it as is, and then it's up to you to try to get it done. The town did not own any of these parcels, we didn't go out and buy them. These are all things that somebody else said, no, I can't do anything with it. On this particular one, I have a pointer, so I want to use it at least once in my life. Without doing something to Joe. But you can see that 8,000 square foot lot with a downward arrow, it really only has value to that direct abutter, but it would square off the lot significantly if they chose to have it. And the same thing with the one across the street. For the most part, you're looking at abutters that would have interest in these properties. I think of all of them, this trio of properties is the one that has the most development potential. The land use departments were a little torn on this one. One thought maybe you could get something along with it. The other ones were concerned about the wetlands and how it will all play out. And again, it's the 3 lots. Then we have a few little lots down here. I think the only people interested here will be direct abutters. But if you were on that house with that waterfront, you would want to have access all the way to the water. Same thing with the smaller lots. Those are small lots, having a little bit of elbow room would be nice. This particular lot, we already have an inquiry that has been received for purchase of this lot that came into the office. So we certainly have at least one buyer that's eager to have this particular lot, and the inquiry was from an abutter.
What street is that?
This one is on Revere Street, so it's right down on the water.
And is there something on them?
It does look like there's an encroachment. And this is why it makes sense for an abutter would certainly want that if they've already encroached. In this particular lot, it's a rear lot. The owner of the front lot may not even know they don't own the rear lot, where their neighbors have similar lots. So again, this might be only of interest to that particular abutter. Another large piece surrounded by wetlands. A nice little corner piece on Kent Street, suitably wet. On Hughes and Kent, again suitably wet. Like I said, the assessed value looks wonderful, the real value is not as much, but if you're an abutter, it could be something you'd be interested in. As you can see, again, there looks like there might be an encroachment there already, up in the upper corner of that lot.
Is the property in front of that, is that the housing authority's parcel?
Joe, is that the housing authority?
I'm not sure, I'm sorry.
Well, I'm just trying to orient where, I think I got the past, it might be the next one down. Oh, that's, no, the one that was. Okay.
I don't think.
And this one, there is another inquiry just came in the other day for this particular parcel. Even though this looks like there's an encroachment, there really isn't. We checked on your map, I guess that had been the site of a house at one point. Or some type of structure, and it's not there anymore, but that is fairly a cleared area. So either one of those two abutters are interested in that. And then there's another parcel down in Central Ave, there's really no one around it. But the abutters on either side may be interested just to keep that open view. Another one in Stanton Lane, and small lots, you might want to expand your lot. And was just a grouping of them to give you a little idea of what you were looking at. So the auction is gonna generate millions of dollars, but it will do four things. One, it provides interested parties, as you saw, there are at least two, especially butters, with an opportunity to buy land that they may have already encroached upon. It'll also generate general fund revenue. When you sell land that's a tax title possession, it goes directly to the general fund and closes out at year end. The parcels that will be sold will be part of future new growth because the use will change from municipal to residential likely. And the parcels that are sold will then be back on tax rolls, which will generate tax revenue annually, which is always a good thing, which is what they were doing until they were taxes ceased to be paid and they were foreclosed. To move forward, we currently have an auction house under contract that went out to bid in 2021 for a 3-year period, JJ Manning Auctioneers. They sold the old Council on Aging, old Line of Fire, and foreclosure on 1 Tilden Ave. So they've been very successful in town. Barring any objection from the board, Pam would move forward with forwarding the 19 identified parcels onto JJ Manning Auctioneers for their expertise and how to package and auction them for the maximum benefit to the town. And expects to come in late spring to early summer. Tried to go fast.
No, it was great presentation. What's the thought? So there's 19 properties. We have to go through the auction process even though people are showing interest in it.
It's the easiest way to go and you should get the highest price possible.
And we've taken on everything the town wants for other uses. Any questions?
Well, so my only one question would be for some of the wetland ones, have we thought, going back to 2, 3, 4 years in the future for the raising of the reservoir? And best to my knowledge now is that what the state may make us replace acre for acre or some ratio of wetlands, because it could be too wet. So if we have wetlands and I just wanna make sure that if we have lands or wetlands,
You can't use wetlands you already have. You have to, if you destroy X number of acres of wetlands, you have to make X number of acres of wetlands. You can't take wetlands you already have and say, we're gonna count these.
and then Caleb put it into the council.
Well,
Sorry?
putting it in conservation, sometimes that is the remedy for issues.
I'll defer to Kevin, but generally if you destroy wetlands, you will go over a certain amount, you must replicate them, which means you have to recreate them. Just protecting a wetland somewhere doesn't count for replication, it's just not what it is.
So what do we do for other situations where we have to come up with a few acres here or there that?
Okay, but in those situations, so using Yellows as an example, we took 6 acres of upland, 7 acres of upland. We're supposed to find 7 acres of like property, so wetlands wouldn't count. What we did is we took significantly more property than that because we knew some of the property that we were giving had wetlands on it. But rather than spending an inordinate amount of money flagging them, we said, hey, here's 20-something acres to make up for the 6, and in this 20 acres, there's at least 6 acres of upland. But that's a different, that's taking land out of conservation, you have to put something back in. And if it's wet, it's not buildable anyways, it wouldn't count.
I have 2 questions. I did work on that Kent Street property, if it's wetlands, but were they butters? I don't know if there's any value to keeping those sites close to each other. And then the other question is, I guess for Pam, if something doesn't sell at auction, somebody comes and picks it up, why would I buy this, it's wetlands? What happens then? It just stays on ours?
We hope to have a bidding war,
That would be
many bidding wars.
Like you said, the butters are the, I think what we have to do is, Karen's point is, if there is, like this one on Lawson, that is, is dry acreage, will the town have use for that in 5 years or something? Because we're not gonna get great value by selling this. There's gonna be limited people there, it's gonna go with a deep discount. Or the one property that you said there were 3,
I think that's where the real value is that first parish trio.
First parish is definitely a hot item, and people in the house all the time.
The one I think you're talking about, the one on Dream World.
Yeah.
Sorry, you said that wrong. I think the only ones that would be interested in that would be in a butter, because you can see, it's probably not as clear on the map that was on the screen, there's pale green in there as well, it's not just the dark green, there's pale green in there.
yeah, well, is it all pale green? I see a little bit in the north.
I think it goes underneath the highlighting.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, is this the side of or pickleball courts in the future, or DPW something or other?
Like it,
What's that?
we like it.
According to the building department, they said apparently wetlands, and according to they marked it as wet. So it might be a swampy.
Or a playground, or something, like you said, I don't think we're gonna make a lot of money on these properties, maybe there's one. So is there a public use that would be in the future that we should not?
It certainly is something to consider, I mean, these properties have been around. We'll have to see how long ago that one was foreclosed upon. Some of these have been.
Well, there's just no one looking at it, you know, Pam tries to collect the money and then puts it, you know, does her job to attain it, but nobody's looking for future uses of it really.
The one that caught my eye that I was actually a bit more nervous about was the Brooklyn Road one. I mean, that one's under 600 feet from Pier 44. And I don't know, I know it's partially wet, but it says possibly buildable. I don't want to tell someone we're going to park a lot there, but certainly not pickleball courts, but Brooklyn Road to this side. It's closer than the Barker Tavern.
Right.
Pier 44. That one made me the most nervous, just because I don't. Even though it's probably one of the better. And again, like you said, for a pickleball court or something else, if it's wet, I don't know the.
Right, no,
Like, don't anything.
no one's gonna buy wet.
Yeah.
And if they do, they're buying it for $1,000 just to, like Nancy said, to get 10 more feet of yard.
Or to get a better view.
Yeah, Dreamwald's been, the town's owned it since 2005, some of the Brooklyn we've owned since 2006, some of it since 2012.
Yeah, no one's looking at it. I mean, the only time we look at it is when we're looking for 15 acres to do something and we skim over that because it's one.
I think that they've done the homework and that these have been vetted is really not of much use to the community. Makes sense to clean it up and get it back on the tax rolls if we can. Because it's $3.
We'll take another look at that, the Brooklyn one, just to make sure it's not directly abutting Pier 44 where they're talking about the park.
Yeah, I think there's one house that's like there, there's one house, looking at Google Maps.
We can take another look at that.
That to me, that was the only one that was just so close to something big, and trust me, I wanna get them all out of here, I would hate to be, oh
Yeah.
geez, now,
Oops.
545.
That was the walking path to where we were gonna put the
Right.
bathrooms.
Want to pull this one up? Those 3 lots on.
The first parish ones are,
Yeah,
those are gonna sell.
they'll sell and something will happen to that,
How
about that.
far down First Parish is it?
It's in the 200s,
218.
so it's beyond the fire station, which is like 149.
Beyond this way.
Just showing Google Maps, just Google Maps.
Which way?
Let's see.
Closer to the
Depending on which way you're going.
Those will definitely be hot though.
Yeah, so that is a great one to get back,
Yeah.
That's
You
the
know,
let's be
one.
honest.
you know, unless it's maybe then needs a
Brambles and they want to bramble.
park, something.
So, yeah, I think some of this will well, nobody will bid on it at all. But I think there are some pieces that people didn't even know they either it wasn't theirs already, or that they can potentially pick up, especially working with the auctioneer about, we'd certainly want to notify all the direct abutters and say, hey, by the way, here's this opportunity, I hear that, or move your shed.
You tell them, we're gonna put a shed there and see if they.
Shed, so shed.
There's a parking lot there, I think the butters may want to buy.
So do we, are you looking for a vote?
No, we were just looking to bring it to your attention that this is where we were going and make sure that there were no objections.
If there's one you wanna take off, now's the time to take it off, and tell us not to do it, otherwise we'll just go forward with the rest of it.
Okay, let's wait let's just, almost half the board is missing, so let's now proceed in the next 2 weeks, we have a chance to give some quick feedback on that, but I think, I agree with you guys, if we can get it back on the tax levy, get some good development.
We had one gorgeous piece of property that was worth a fortune, and then we realized it's already in conservation.
Yeah.
I was gonna sell it anyways, but they would love it.
Thank you for your time today.
Thank you guys.
It's great, thank you.
Next discussion vote is the sewer department. Is Will here? Okay, Will.
He's not in.
Will and Kevin? How you guys doing?
Good evening, doing great.
Alright.
So a little history if you'd like me to get started. Back a while ago when we were looking to do the joint project with Cohasset and Hull to wheel different sewage out to Hull so that we can increase our capacity. When that wasn't working out, we were directed to go forward, look at some I&I projects to see what we could do to save significant amounts of I&I. So we went with a contractor, an engineering firm, Environmental Partners. They did a great job for us. They did a lot of research on I&I. We came up with a project and we went out to bid on it. So the project is going to consist of a lot of cleaning and lining, some replacements. Originally, we were bidding it similar. Environmental Partners, just to say, is also the same company, engineering firm that did Scituate. We had very good luck with them. And we removed a lot of material from the sewer system by using that project. So we were looking to do something similar about main replacement and doing some other different things to save I&I. Their suggestion was going with a cleaning line project because they figured it was about half the cost instead of replacing the entire main. They looked at a couple options. We talked about grouting, potentially grouting some of the areas. The concern about the grouting was the groundwater itself because we're in high groundwater areas. And the concern was that we, just track the I&I or move it in the grouting process takes multiple applications over the course of the year and it doesn't hold out as one. So in the contract, I've got some questions and answers, questions I thought the board would have. For this value of the contract, the I&I, what can we expect to save? The estimate from the engineering firm is about 150,000 gallons that we can remove. Project duration is about 10 months. Thoughts on the contract and National Water Main. From all the reports and references we have, they're very well qualified. And we don't think we would have any issues with them. They have an excellent reputation. The lining method that they're planning on using is expected to last, scientifically they say 100 years in a lab. I never say these things would last 100 years, but we should be able to get a good, decent lifespan out of them. The work system on doing this work is typically from 7 to 5. In certain locations, they may have to do some night work or some weekend work, depending on what's going on, but we'll deal with that when the time comes after we get a contractor scheduled. That will depend on the amount of flow. They may need to divert flows or something to that effect. Impacts on residents during the construction, and if we are doing a service to a particular house, We might limit the use of sewage or, water for about 6 hours, but that's, typical so that we can realign the service. The other question I had, will it be loud? Loudest equipment they have is a backhoe. There are some locations where they're going to be digging up to fix a blockage or some damaged pipe. There's about 8 locations in town. The consistency, let me see, trucks and equipment that's on the road would typically be a couple box trucks and a couple pickup trucks for support. We're planning on addressing 600 services. And for oversight, we have right now working with environmental partners, and that's the second phase for the contract. Gentleman named Rich Barry, who was the former sewer superintendent of Westwood, who's now retired, and he would be kind of the overseer of the project as it's going in and sticking with it. So he's got some experience. They're planning on doing almost 31,000 linear feet of 8 and 12-inch line. They're going to clean out that we have some heavy contaminants in roots, about 2,100 linear feet. They're going to do 10 protruding building services, which means it's protruding into pipe. They are also going to grout up some leaks, some larger leaks that we have. They identified 90 leaks that we had. And they also had installing top hat lateral connection repairs for some of the different services. They're estimating about 630. And we, as I said before, we'll be excavating about 9 spots at different locations. Egypt Beach Road, Hadley Road in Egypt, Curtis, Porter, Hadley, Damon, Porter, and Otis Place, where large leaks right down. So, that's what we have. We came in under the engineer's estimate, and I can, you want to add anything to that, or?
Before you do, just tell us where you're going from. It says Egypt Beach down to Oceanside area.
Yeah, so this is the area between Egypt Beach and Cedar Point, Oceanside area, right in the middle there, being the center focus of the project.
So from like Egypt Beach parking lot all the way back to the lighthouse essentially?
Yeah, that's a generalized area that we're working on.
All the side streets are.
Yep, yeah, many of the side streets.
So we did a lot of camera work on all the side streets, looking for the worst areas, and where we could get the most bang for the buck, doing lining, repairing, and cleaning things up.
That's really phase 2 after Cedar Point.
Phase two of this, yes.
Any questions? I mean, Bill, we'll go on with it.
Yeah, no, I just so you know, a resident reached out, looked at the contract, and I think some of this is actually in the backup of the, there's 1,000 feet that was originally proposed for the laterals for the 600. There's some concern that may not be enough, but I think looking through the backup here that there is, I don't care if you want to address that, but there are plans to make sure that those laterals will be fixed. Knowing what that initial number is, there's an awareness of that. We should be able to then go back and fill in to make sure that we don't have.
So I spoke to the engineer on that. They didn't want to say we were going to do too many all the laterals we were planning on, we picked the worst amount.
Yeah.
But the fear was we would exceed our budget if we did everything. Things came in below budget, so we are able to expand the amount of services that we do and get a lot of the area that we want. There was concern that we wouldn't be able to fit everything in the budget that we have.
So we do have room.
But didn't we find the laterals on Cedar Point were the worst part of the project?
They were.
So if we're gonna fix the main and not get to the house,
We are doing lateral work also.
but you said there wasn't enough money in it to do all the laterals.
Well, I think we were looking at an $8.8 million project if we dug everything up into the laterals.
Yeah.
Significantly higher is almost double the cost.
So what's your thought, to do less of a distance and more laterals, or how?
No, we actually cambered a lot of the areas and they came up with enough areas that we could address and fix through lining and redoing some of the laterals. in some of the bigger holes that we have to save 150,000 gallons per day.
You're not gonna line a lateral, right, to replace it?
They will do some lining of lead. You wanna help me out on that one?
Yep, yeah, we have,
Top hats, I'll let you talk.
included in our bid was an alternate, that we're including in our project. So that alternate is to extend the liner, the top hat liners that were discussed, those go out into the laterals. And then the alternate is to extend that liner, within the foundation of the property, so on the private service part. So this will line from the main as close as we can to the house, in those situations.
With what percentage of the laterals?
I'm hoping we can get all of them in the project area. That remains to be seen. I kind of got to get out there. And usually those private service parts tend to be pretty tricky with potential defects that we could run into. So I don't want to quote that we're going to be able to do all of them because we may, open a can of worms on service here or there.
What they said is they physically have to camera each individual service before they do it because if they're defects, the line will not adhere to it. So they said it depends on pipe type, what's there, and if there's any crazy bends or anything else that they can and can't do, which they would identify.
Yeah, I guess I just wanna make sure that if, I don't wanna say that if we need to spend more money, but I don't want to go in and not fix. Right, I guess I would rather you to come back and say, hey, we're fixing this because it's gonna save X amount more, because we didn't realize. I know we're doing the camera work. But if we do it, I just wanna make sure we're gonna do it right and do it. I'd rather, if we're gonna make a mistake on that side of it, if that makes sense, that we're fixing everything and I'm rambling, I know, but.
What's the contingency on the project? It's in the bid, do you know?
Do you have
The
the
alternative?
No, the total budget value.
Eight to 10%.
Total budget was 2.78 million.
So Kevin, you hear our concern here, right?
Yeah, no, I
How
do.
we, how much, where does the homeowner own up to, and what's their liability?
The homeowner typically owns to the edge of the road.
So are we gonna go just to the edge of the roadway and say the rest
We're
of it's
gonna,
on you?
if we see something, we're gonna go a little further, or if we can't fix it, we would notify the homeowner. And we would discuss it, deal with it at that point. I mean, if we see something that's horrible, we have to address it, we'll probably address it, but we'll deal with it. And Tony, I agree with you 100% because I was driving these guys crazy because I want to replace everything all the way to the laterals.
Right.
And then they told me the price tag,
Right, so can we enforce the fact that the homeowner has to replace their lateral if it's defective?
We do to a point, obviously, if somebody sells their home right now, they have to inspect their lateral, and if it's not working properly or collapsed, they have to fix it, before they sell the house. So it's kind of gonna depend on, how it's connected up. I mean, we'd probably get the Board of Health involved if that was the case, because if that was the case, they'd have raw sewage potentially climbing up in their yard. And
So you're
that's-
gonna go house by house essentially and tell somebody that,
If we have that issue, yes, but what we're trying to do is do everything underground and not really bother a lot of people. We're hoping the most impact they have from us is a knock on the door and a little flyer that says, please don't flush your toilet from 7 to 2, and, we'll do the liners and get things repaired.
well, I think the homeowner, for the most part, would wanna know, if you can give them, if you knew that these 50 were bad because of the camera work that we've done, they probably wanna get it replaced while you're digging a hole.
Right, and and this is really cool stuff because they actually have little robots that go into the pipe and do some of this work, and they have other things that go up the surfaces. So we're not necessarily digging much up, per se, like out in the front lawn. But I'm sure if we see a total disaster of an area and they're not gonna do anything and they give us permission and we can save a lot of I&I by replacing that service, I'm sure we're gonna be talking to people and maybe doing something. We wouldn't be.
I think that's our biggest concern.
Yeah, and our biggest concern is to fix capacity. And, Andrew brought up to me, could we grout? And yeah, we could grout. And I actually reached out to, Hull Sewer Superintendent, John Sucruzzi, and asked him what his thoughts are, because he's got a lot of experience with that work. And he was hesitant on the grouting. They've had a lot of bad luck with it in Hull due to the water table and due to the ocean. And he said, the problem with it is the groundwater, you're chasing the groundwater as well as potentially ocean water. It's not, a better product would be going with the cleaning line. I didn't give him the history of what we were doing. I just wanted his opinion on the side, just to say, did we miss anything?
So now, bigger picture. We did Cedar Point, our capacity was supposed to come from 99 to 60. It's supposed to come down considerably, it hasn't. How is this next $3 million project? The expectation was that we would be gaining a lot of capacity from one and both of these projects, but we haven't seen it. So I've seen a lot of projects in the last.
No,
4 years,
and I agree with you. And I'm not gonna say we're gonna, automatically this time next year, we're gonna be down, because I really can't. A lot of it depends on the weather and where the groundwater table is on. Our rate now, where are we rated right now?
We're at about 76% of our capacity right now.
Which we were at 92% at one point, and we got all the way up
So
to
we
98.
were over 100% briefly
prior to
during that,
after Cedar Point.
yeah, with that abnormal rainfall in July, the way it affected our rolling average was adverse.
And that's not coming in through sewers, that's coming in all through the infrastructure of the sewer system.
Correct. And actually, Andrew asked me for some information recently, and it was kind of eye-opening for the amount of water we produce and the amount of influent that we deal with in the plant.
Yeah,
Pulling it out on the spot.
I have it here. So only 30% of the town is on sewer. And so we bill 380 million gallons. So 380, that by third, say about 30 to be generous. So 130 million gallons on sewer. We treat 433 million gallons. Which to me, that's eye-opening. We have an I&I problem, we don't have a user problem. It's not the users, it's the holes in the system.
Two-thirds of what you treat is not out of the water.
Which means, right, we don't plug holes.
But we've been plugging the holes. So
Right,
again, this is 20 years I've been doing this. We were doing I&I projects every single time, and we can't find that one big hole.
I think it's death by 1,000 paper cuts. I don't think it's one big hole. We have found some big holes, and said, ooh, this is gonna make a big difference, but it's death by 1,000 paper cuts, trying to find the different sources of water.
right. The more I look at this, the more I'm ready to say, hey, 150,000 gallons is the estimate. We might as well just sewer from Scituate tomorrow. Pop the champagne, 150, that's what it's gonna save, because it's not the users, it's the I&I, you're gonna have to keep finding those holes, because that's what the number is, 100,000.
And what was
And the more money we can bring in to fix those problems with folks in North Scituate, paying those prices to get in, we'll be able to.
what was the build out for North Scituate?
About 125,000, I think.
125?
Yeah.
For a full build out.
This is
Yeah,
150.
that would pay for a lot more.
Yeah, we're working on that estimated number. The Cedar Point number was higher than that. And we didn't get it. So it's, this is guessing.
We'll give it and send a higher
Yeah.
number and say, but we won't know for a year.
So Cedar Point, I think, was only 20,000 to 40,000, I thought we had said.
No,
We had a goal number, the real capacity gains was about 40,000 some change.
Oh, I don't-
40.
Or if that was there. But I do remember you distinctly saying, well, no, for a year.
I keep asking them, can you measure it? And the risk of grossing everybody at home, it's not measuring water. You can't just put a wheel in there and measure how much is going through it. There's just too much other stuff in there. But
Well, we've always known that we process, you know, you came up with a high number, we always know it was 30 to 45% is not, you know, is seawater or rainwater. I'm just confident of the millions of dollars we're putting into I&I, especially for lining projects. When I'm putting a new pipe in there, like Cedar Point should be solid, right? It should be.
Which we feel it is, yep, it's tight.
So it's almost like you gotta do that, redo the whole sewer system like that to make it. I mean, look at the savings you get on the other side if you're only processing 10%.
Right, but if this technology gets us 75 years, how is it?
Well, we've done this before, this isn't the first lining project we've done.
First lining project in a while. Pretty much, I mean, at least 7 years, I think, was the last time I recall. Sewer line project went up.
And my point was that if it's much more cost effective to do the lining and results in the same kind of protection, we can do a lot more and replace.
Yeah, well,
I mean, the ground, again, I'm not an engineer, and the gentleman who reached out. The grouting is much less expensive, and it does not last nearly as long. You're talking not even a decade, but a tenth of the price. And it's way cheaper, is that not correct?
Yeah, the grouting
It's a
is
Band-Aid.
cheaper, but
It's a
it's about a 1 to 5 year fix.
Right.
The liners are gonna be more of a 50 to 100 year type solution. And to be perfectly transparent, this is an ongoing commitment for infrastructure maintenance. Right now, we're able to present this as a capacity restoration project, which is excellent for the town. But you'll notice some of these locations need to be excavated because they're beyond lining, because they're approaching states of failure in those locations. So as time progresses, if we don't address those areas, it'll be a service restoration to address failures type of project. So it's good that we're ahead of things.
does the lining solve that very bad areas? It'll be a strong enough structure to actually be a replacement of a pipe?
Yep, yeah, the liner is essentially, once it's cured, a pipe within the pipe. So it provides structural integrity to the pipe.
It just, my thinking on all this has changed. Because if we had relined all of those pipes, right, and the I&I, our capacity would be off the charts. It's not the users, this is the problem, right? Because I know where it's going, sorry, I'm just thinking about it.
No, you're right, I mean, I&I's always been a problem, but it doesn't seem like the projects that we've done have ever given us the capacity back. It's almost like the water's trying to come in, and no matter what you fix, it's just, it's gonna come in faster when you fill this hole just takes in more. It's nice to hear that it's at 76% right now.
the other issue that happened on the Cedar Point too is we did the work on Cedar Point, which gave us capacity, and then we brought in, what was the condo we brought in?
The Riverway condos.
Riverway condos connected up. And that
It was 70,000.
kind of, you know, we put more in than we were taking out on one end, so. It's just,
I'm certainly not saying not doing it, I'm just hoping we see the results.
Yeah, we do too, and you know, that's part of the reason why we didn't line Cedar Point, because there were past projects that went in there, you know, 30 years ago, where they tried to line, even 20 years ago, and they failed, they didn't hold up as well, because there was too much water pressure, or they weren't installed properly at some points, so, that's some of the stuff that we're looking at. That's one of the reasons why we want environmental partners and their representative, who's, former sewer superintendent in Westwood, to be overseeing this and helping out with the project to make sure things are installed correctly and done right.
When does the Greenbush apartments come online?
And then in
I
June.
think April, May right now, they're still delayed, they're having a hard time getting some equipment, but later on this spring, early summer.
Well, I mean, that's why we did Cedar Point, because, I mean, that was.
Right, but they're not gonna open and fill up, so it'll be gradual over time. But they're scheduled open,
They're hoping to go up.
and we don't have any word, I haven't talked to Karen, but they haven't given us really a heads up on what they have for the commercial uses in there.
What's the potential use of that?
Coffee shop was mentioned,
No, the number of gallons.
68 units.
Another 15 to 17,000 gallons per day.
At full capacity. All right, line quick.
Couple questions. If somebody's lateral going from the house to the main is marginal at best, would it not be the responsibility of the homeowner to fix it?
Yeah, that's what we were just saying.
I know that's what you were saying, and I know that now, if you sell your house, you have to ensure that that lateral is as it should be. If your water pipe breaks, I have to fix it. If I have to put in, really, if my septic system fails, I have to fix it. So I don't understand why we are, the town is responsible for a lot of these laterals if they're a mess, and if the homeowner says no, then
Well, I
what's the?
think, correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, but I think it is their responsibility. We're gonna push it a little bit further, but then the Board of Health would have to get involved to say, no, you do have to fix it.
If we found a line that was in extremely bad shape and putting in 1,000 gallons a day into the system, we would do what we can to fix it. And if it was minimal backhoe work, if we can eliminate that, we might try to help out with that or do what we can with the resident. I mean, you're right, the ultimate liability falls on the resident, but if they're leaking that much or it's wide open or it is something that we can go, we do have a mechanism, I think we can attach, is it $50 or $100?
It was increased to $1,000 a month.
It's $1,000 a month for different areas if we have inflow, if we identify inflow or infiltration from a home. Obviously, that's not something we'd like to do or want to do, but it gives us a little help also on trying to get a line fixed if it is in really bad shape.
Well, I think Ann's point is that the homeowner has to be responsible for the part on their property. And not us going and fixing 600 laterals because we identified.
The other question I have, has anybody camera the pipe that runs from First Parish or wherever up to North Situate? Is that 10 or 12, is that pipe still viable?
We have not. Can I answer that or?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, we have not, we've not done that pipe and inspected it. We have, at least I know I have a lot of concerns about that pipe. I'm worried about future aspect because it basically goes almost underneath the train. And Will and I went to Newita, when they get the award for the Cedar Point project. And the town, I think it was the town of Reading, was talking about, they had a similar force main underneath there. And they had a break in the force main. And they said they had to replace, was it 30 feet? 20 or 30 feet?
Figures, but it was.
But it cost them almost $1 million because they had to deal with the train and all the aspects and everything else. I'm just really hesitant on using that line in knowing in the future that somebody's going to be dealing with the train as well as trying to maintain that line. How do you get in and clean that line? How do you get in and inspect it? How can you get out there even to camera it when you get trains going by and it's right underneath the tracks? I think the line is about 20 years old now, and that train's been going on it, driving over it, bouncing up and down. I'd just be a little nervous about using it. We could look at it, but I'm nervous about it.
Well, that was $3 million that you just flushed.
Well, an analogy, but,
I would
But
love
this
to
is-
evaluate that pipe, so far I've been unsuccessful in gaining traction, coordinating with the MPTA. We need special permission and coordination with the MPTA to inspect it.
I've got to assume that there was some engineer work done on it before we put it near or under a train track, that it wasn't gonna break. So I'm hoping,
No, but they do clog up. They do block
is it
up.
actually under the track or is it in the bed next to it?
I thought the track is here and it's like here, but there's also offset manholes, as I recall, looking at the plans, that go underneath it, and you enter the side, you come in, and the pipe is over, it's almost underneath the track. I'd have to double check it. That was my only concern, that's my concern about that. It could be fine, we could evaluate it, it could be perfect. I hope it is, but it just makes me nervous going underneath the water.
I think, again, to Ann's point, that we should get that evaluated, because that is where we're headed. Right? I don't think anyone has confidence that we're gonna be wheeling this stuff to Cohasset anymore. And that is the next big sewer project that I believe the board wants to proceed with.
Before we obviously went through with any design phases for that, we would evaluate all options. We also have the option, we put a brand new sewer line all the way down the end of Hadley up to Gannett. One of the ideas is to continue all the way down to Gannett and put a pump house and pump it over to that and then pump it through and wheel it along. So we do have other options, it's not set in stone. So, but we'd look at every option, do a cost comparison, and come up with a decision prior to that.
Right, any other questions?
Lots of them today.
All right, so,
You need to vote the,
we need to vote the bid and the amendment.
And the amendment for the next phase of the engineer's contract.
Move that the select board award the Scituate sewer rehabilitation base bid and alternative A bid to National Water Main Cleaning Company to provide sewer repairs and sealing to an area outlined from Egypt Beach to Ocean Side Drive in the amount of $2,787,825.
Second.
Second.
From Ms. Canfield, further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye, it is unanimous. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
And there's three, you can hear one. And the second one?
That was for A.
Yeah. Lost my page, I'm sorry. Going up. Back down.
Would you like me to make a motion?
Yeah.
Move to approve the amended October 2020 Scituate I-9 SES contract number 20-SS-44 for amount not to exceed $376,040 in compensation for providing the services described January 27, 2023 SSES program construction phase services scope of work and fee proposal.
Second.
Second one, Mr. Goodrich, further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it is unanimous, 3-0. All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Are you here for the sewer abatement or not?
He's
No.
staying for,
Yeah.
he's staying for.
Okay, we'll just sit here and listen. You coming up, Nancy?
No, I'm gonna stay right here.
So the next item is a discussion vote for sewer abatement for Cedar Point parcels 46-2-001 and 46-01-042.
So there are two, one is 88 Rebecca Road. They were looking for abatement due to out-of-pocket expenses. They do not believe that they needed to have their lateral replaced. But we replaced all the laterals and then there was work that had to be done after the job was finished. Those are not abatement reasons. If you had a problem with the work, that should have been done with the contractor before it was done. It's not a reason to have abatement. On 27 Lighthouse Road, there were two, again, out-of-pocket expenses for the driveway after we were done. But they also are looking for abatement because the lateral was not very long, so they shouldn't have been charged the same as everybody else. But the charges are based upon units, not upon footage, linear foot, so one parcel, one abatement. So that's not a reason to have abatement in either case. So neither one of them would be reasons for abatements. They They came to me, I was gonna deny them, but I don't have that authority because you're the sewer commissioner, so it has to come to you.
Anyone here for either of these parcels? No? Well, I think you're 100% correct in terms of the betterment, that it goes by parcel regardless of the amount of work done on there. If there was damage to it, why didn't they talk to?
That would have been something they should have taken up with the contractor, when the contractor was there, or taken action against the contractor.
And the project was to replace all laterals, not.
We replaced all the laterals, whether they were clay, tin, wood, doesn't matter, we replaced all of them. Because in the case of Cedar Point, it was a brand new line, it was a deep line. And we didn't want multiple contractors coming in, tapping that pipe and replacing laterals, it would have negated the whole reason we did the project, so we just replaced every single lateral in our project.
And this was thoroughly discussed. We talked about this
Ad nauseam.
ad nauseam in many meetings, and, you know, it was unanimous on the 70 or 80 people that were at the meetings, so. Okay, so can I have a motion, or we don't need a motion, right?
No, you do, you motion to deny the two betterments.
Move to deny the sewer betterment abatement application for parcel ID number 46-02001, 88 Rebecca Road, and parcel ID 46-01-042, 27 Lighthouse Road, and have the town administrators in a letter as previously reviewed by town council outline the reasons for denial.
Second by Ms. Canfield, further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye, it's unanimous. Thank you, guys. There is, the next topic, which is a proposed regional hazard waste depot, is being put on hold, and that will be on a future meeting. The next discussion and vote after that is a contract for Campbell Construction Group for the restoration of the lighthouse. In the room, as you like to come.
Our OPM Rick Pomeroy is on the Zoom call,
I didn't realize you invited them.
so,
Jim, how are you?
Rick,
Rick, sorry. Wrong project.
can you hear us, Rick?
No,
He's muted.
You're muted.
How many times have we said that?
I didn't realize.
Seth, can you see? We can't hear you.
Yes.
Looks great though.
There we go.
You look good.
I was blocked out there for a minute. Sorry about that.
We still can't hear you.
Still can't hear you. All right, I'll tell you what, let's, Seth, can you get on with him and see if we can help? You're sure you're unmuted, right?
Can you hear me now?
Doesn't show you.
Oh, yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Now you're opposed.
Rick, we do hear you. Yes, do
Well, I
you
didn't
not,
know.
do you not
Okay.
hear Rick?
I didn't invite
Thank you.
anyone, so.
He's, Seth.
Yeah, we still should be on the top.
Seth Williams who asked to re-up me.
I'm sorry, do you not hear me?
I can hear you, Seth. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Rick, you might have to log off and log back on.
Well,
we
Seth
need you
can hear
to
me.
turn the volume up, your
Seth,
volume.
we can't hear you either.
Hold on,
Maybe
Rick.
it's us.
Volume down?
I'm gonna count to 10. Do you hear me now?
Yeah, Rick, can you talk now?
Yes. Hello.
Yay.
Good evening.
Thanks, Seth.
It's very rare that the technical error is not on my part.
Thank you. So tell us about the restoration project for the lighthouse.
Well, I'd be glad to. Thank you very much. We on February 23rd, we received 2 bids for the restoration of the lighthouse, and the bidding was performed electronically on biddocs.com, and received 2 bids. Campbell
Can you
Construction.
just hold on for 1 second? I see you're recording it. We just need to be made aware in advance of that. Are you a reporter or, okay, from where?
Boston Globe.
Boston Globe. Great. Thank you very much. Anyone have a problem with the recording?
No.
Great.
Okay.
Thanks. Sorry to interrupt. Yep.
Not a problem. Thank you. So we received 2 bids. The low bid was Campbell Construction LLC out of Peabody, Massachusetts, and their bid amount was $1,116,340. And the second bidder was Northern Contracting Corp out of Canton, Massachusetts, and their bid was $1,828,100. So after we received the bids, we went through the bid documents and we verified that all of the appropriate information was submitted with each bid. The bids were signed, the bid bonds were received. Then we looked at the bid values, and right up front, when we see two bids, generally we like to get more than two bids, but this is a very unique project, and quite frankly, it's pretty busy out there. So we're seeing lower numbers on our bids. But we looked at the bid values, and there's quite a disparity between the two bids. So immediately, we talked about it with our project architect, and they had felt that, in their opinion of value, when they're going through the design, that the number was going to be down in the 1,000,002, 1,000,003 range. So they felt that the 1,000,001 number was a good number. I also spoke with the owner of Spencer Preservation Group, which I normally do when we see a difference in bids. I asked him first if he has seen the second bidder. He was aware of it. I asked him secondly if they had reviewed their estimate and they were comfortable with the bid. And he said they were in the process of reviewing that now, and he'd get back to me. He called me about a day later and said, yeah, Rick, we're very comfortable with our bid. We'd rather have the higher number, but we're very comfortable with our bid and we feel it's appropriate for the project. So I felt comfortable with that. The next step is doing a deep dive review of this contractor. So we did a DCAM file review, and we were able to receive documents from DCAM on 14 projects that were filed with them. And DCAM, their average rating was a 94, which is a good rating. The rating scale, anything below 80 is failing. And 100% is 100 is perfect. You never see contractors in the 100 range. You generally see contractors anywhere from, in the mid 90s up to, 99. So we felt that was a good rating analysis. Then we performed reference checks on the contractor. The reference checks, I had in my report to the town administrator, we had received 6 references. By the time that today had closed out, I had received another 3. So we had received 9 references. And the way we do our references is we take references, we took several references that the contractor had provided as part of their bid documents to double check those. But then we do a dive into the DCAM documents, and we try to pull references from the back pages. And so we're not looking for the surface references. We're looking for references that were contact people that they've worked with in the past in either state agencies or other project managers or architectural firms. So out of the 9 that we received, all of them were extremely favorable. And the constant thread was that they're a very responsible contractor. They're very good to work with, and they have great relationships with their clients, which we felt was excellent. Second, we look into their historical, or third, we look into their historical building restoration qualifications. And Campbell holds a historical building restoration category within DCAM, a certification. And that's not an easy certification to obtain. You have to have historical building experience even to get the certification, and it's updated annually. So DCAM does a good job of making sure that the contractors meet those qualifications. On top of that, our architect on this project, which is Spencer Preservation Group, they have had experience with Campbell on numerous projects over the last number of years and speak very highly of them. They had mentioned Campbell as a very likely source as a contractor bidding on this when Spencer had first started on the project. They have a great relationship with them. So everything checked out. Their bid number is a good number. They confirmed it. Their DCAM review is checked out. Their references have checked out. and their historical building restoration qualifications meet our categories. So where do we go from here? The budget, I think the town administrator has brought you up to speed at our last update. Right now, there's $2.2 million of funds available. We've either expended or have encumbered funds of $287,975.33, which leaves us a balance of $1,712,024.67. So the bid is reasonable, is affordable within your budget, leaving you a budget after, if this contract is awarded, it will leave you about $795,000 below the 2.2 million. I'll just keep on going and then I'll open up the questions. As far as the schedule goes, the contractor is, we've worked through a schedule with him today. He feels quite confidently that he can mobilize this within 30 days of notice to proceed. And the notice to proceed would take place after the contract has been signed. We've received the insurance certificates and performance and payment bonds. We feel that we most likely can have those documents completed within 2 weeks. And a notice to proceed could be issued at that point. The contractor feels that he said 4 to 5 months for completion of the project after notice to proceed, which would put us, July, August, I think that is, if I'm counting it correctly. The big issue will be the fabrication of the lantern room and recreating that. So having said all of that, everything checks, we've checked all the boxes with this contractor. And we feel we would like to make a recommendation that the town proceed with Campbell Construction. And between Nancy and myself, we can work to getting the contract and insurances squared away and get this project started for you.
Great, thank you for the work, Rick. Questions?
Thank you so much for the detailed background. This is very exciting. Just a question about the construction. So I know there's going to be reconstruction at the top before the lantern room goes back on. Is the lantern room constructions all off-site? Or will they be doing, how will that be done?
The contractor, I went through that with them today. They're planning on taking the lantern off-site immediately and bringing it to their shop. They would be transporting it and handling all of the transport, so they can use that as a template in their shop in the recreation of the lantern room. The plan is not to reconstruct that lantern room, but to create a template, use that as a template and make a new lantern room. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
I think part of the question is, you said it's going to take 4 to 5 months of completion. How much of that is going to be on site? That's a very active area, especially in the summer.
We're envisioning that one of their first steps is going to be to secure that area. We've established a limit of work around the lighthouse for the contractor to work safely and for the public to remain safe. And there may be times when we can compress that limit of work, but what we're dealing with right now is staging. We'll be staging around the entire lantern, around the entire tower. And the reconstruction of the top of that will include the demolition of the existing concrete slab up there at the top. And then the recreation of about 4 feet. We'll be bringing down the masonry about 4 feet and rebuilding it up with the inner core. It will save as much masonry as possible, but I guess where I'm going with this is that the contractor will be responsible for creating a safe work zone around that, which is going to prohibit the public from going around that lantern room until they're complete.
No jetty.
The jetty out? No, I was very clear that access to the jetty had to be maintained. But right behind the lighthouse, that will all be blocked off. The walkway to the left as you look at it will be blocked off. But Rick will tell you that I was very clear.
Yes.
Access to the jetty had to be maintained throughout the summer. Now, there may be a time, I'm sorry,
How will you get there, around the beach?
around the outside, the beach side. There may be a day, or maybe a couple of days where we will have to restrict access because they're gonna crane or something there. But for the most part, you will be able to access the beach and the jetty, but you won't be able to access that part of the seawall directly behind the land.
And what Jim is describing was built into the documents. So the contractor has been made aware through the bidding period of what the restrictions are. And keeping that jetty open to the public at all times is part of that agreement.
Before we actually get out there and start working, we can post that limit of work so people will know where it's gonna be.
I guess what I would ask is, I'd like to not have scaffolding and all the work stuff there for 4 to 5 months if it's only gonna be worked on for 2 to 3 weeks. You know what I'm saying? Like if the demolition part and the building part takes 3 weeks, can we try and time it so that that area is open to the public as long as possible? Clearly, when you're putting the lantern back on, it'll have to be, but you understand what I'm saying? Like,
I do.
if the contract gets signed on March 15th, I don't want the scaffolding to go up first because, you have 4 or 5 months for it to sit.
Yes, I hear you loud and clear. And what we'll do right up front is work with the contractor to limit the scaffolding to be located there during the period of time that work is taking place on the tower. Ideally, what we'd like to see is all of that work started immediately and complete the tower and then have it sitting there waiting for the new lantern room to be hoisted in place. And if we can accomplish that, then I agree with you 100%. We can pull that scaffolding out because it most likely will not be necessary, after the cap is completed. But what we can do is we'll work through that sequencing plan with the contractor and we can get back to you on that.
Yeah, if the construction work could get done in the spring, that would be ideal. And then obviously shut it down for the time period that it takes to get the lantern secured to the top. Andy?
No, thank you for going back. I saw the spread between those bids and it made me nervous, so I'm glad you were able to go back and review all that calmed my concerns. I agree with you, trying to time it, limit it. I think it will be a great issue going forward.
Any questions from the audience? Gigi, nothing from you? Good. All right. Thank you very much. So we'll get assuming that we have a favorable vote in a couple seconds. 14 days for the documents, 30 days for them to sign or agree or get engaged, 4 months, 4 or 5 months to completion.
That's correct. The 30 days would be like a mobilization. So once they know they have the project, they'll start purchasing the materials and getting everything scheduled. But their intention is not to get on the job and just sit around. So when they get there, they want to move right away. So it's got a mobilization period that they call it.
Where's the lantern room now?
Basically in the backyard of the lighthouse keepers.
So they'll come and just take that away at some point.
That's correct. Yep.
All right. If there's no other questions, can I have a motion?
Move to award a contract to Campbell Construction Group LLC at the amount of $1,116,340 for the restoration of the historic Scituate lighthouse.
Second.
Second by Ms. Canfield. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it is unanimous, 3-0. Rick, thank you very much for all that information and work.
Well, thank you very much. Nice to be in front of you this evening, and congratulations. This is a great step forward.
It is.
Take care.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Next item is discussion vote on the management of historical properties. Yeah, and Nancy, information.
It's to get the discussion started and to get the board's approval to start work on this project. last year we implemented one of the GASBs, and we found out that we were, GASB 87 related to leases. And we were I found that I was missing some of the leases for the historic property. The lighthouse lease is from 1994 and is long since expired. So we did speak to Bob Chessie of Scituate Historical Society during their budget meeting about that, something that we need to get addressed. But overall, I don't necessarily have maintenance agreements or lease agreements with entities for the care and maintenance of some of the historical properties which are being cared for by Scituate Historical, and that doesn't mean there aren't any, but that would be part of this process if the board is so willing, that I would work with the Scituate Historical Society to find out what documents they have, what documents we have, see what's expired, and then move forward. We do know from town council that for anything that is expired, that we want to have an agreement in place for the care and maintenance of the historical property, it has to go out to bid. So we would then have to craft an RFP to do that, but that's several steps down the way. Right now, we just want to establish what we do have, what we don't have, then come back to the board and say, okay, these are the properties that are missing some type of written agreement as to the care and maintenance of them, and what exactly is it that the select board wants for these properties to have for care and maintenance. Who's responsible for what? Is there allowance for properties to be sublet? So the lighthouse lease allows for the Scituate Historical Society to sublet it, so it has a tenant. But is that something that the select board wants to go forward in any of these situations where there isn't an agreement? Or is that something that the select board wants to keep with themselves? So those are the types of questions we want to answer. This came up again just with the lighthouse, when we were trying to get approaching the insurer for builder's risk insurance. They were like, well, who has the care and maintenance of the lighthouse? Oh, well, we kind of have we have a document that says who has the care and maintenance, but the document is expired. They're like, oh. So it's something that's coming up in more and more ways. The issue with Cudworth House and not knowing that there had been damage there. You know, the care and custody is being well maintained, but we just don't have anything in writing in some cases, and we just want to close those loops. So that's the item that I want to see how to test the temperature of the board on that.
What properties are we talking about? Because some.
Lighthouse, Man House, Bates House, Lawson Tower. All of those.
So all those are town owned, but they're under the maintenance of the historians.
Yes, and whether there are written agreements for all of those, could be, might not be.
Okay.
And in some cases, at least one of them is expired. Scituate Arts the Bailey Ellis House is under a separate lease with Scituate Arts Association.
Right.
And that is a current lease.
I think it makes perfect sense, and I can't imagine any of the two people that are here not agreeing to take the next steps in terms of getting our ducks in a line and find out what the status of all the properties are and get it up to date.
And I want to be really clear with the board, this has nothing to do with the current care and maintenance. The current care and maintenance of those properties is impeccable from the work that's done by Scituate Historical Society. It's just a lack of paperwork that we're just trying to close the loop on because of the GASB and this issue with builder's risk.
Any questions? Karen?
That is my one question. So yes, we should definitely have an inventory, we should get our ducks in a row, we should do all those things because you never know when you're gonna need it, and that's a good policy. But so if you have to go out for if we don't have them on Apple, and we have to craft an RFP, walk me through that, like who would, besides the historical society?
It might not be anyone, and it also depends on what it is the board is requesting.
Right, so
Right
that's
now-
where we get into questions like what are we requiring of them and what is,
So right now, there is no monetary gain from the Scituate Historical Society through the agreements that we have, but we have in the recent years paid oversight for some of the hours worked by Scituate Historical members at the properties.
so the sublease revenue goes to,
On the Lighthouse and the Man House, they go to their gift funds. The Lighthouse lease specifies that. I don't have a document on the Man House, but
the gift
it's
fund.
treated the same. It actually specifies the Lighthouse gift fund shall receive the rent. But who sets the rent, how often it gets changed, if it should get changed. it's fairly silent because in the lighthouse lease, it is the right of Situate Historical to sublet.
And then who has the authority to authorize the use of those funds for the lighthouse?
It's a revolving fund, it's a gift fund, so we currently pay any repair bills out of that account.
The town does.
Yes.
The town?
Yeah, they don't have any
Not
access to
society.
it now.
Okay, but they know that there's that problem.
It can't be used for anything else,
No, correct.
Okay,
Same thing with the man house.
okay.
but I don't think it covers
No.
the expenditures.
Yeah, and I mean, you also get into the issue of like there's alarms there and, you know, when the alarm rings, it's not our facilities department that's answering it. So, you know, those are things that you, if there isn't an agreement in place that maybe you wanna spell out a little bit more than you did in 1994. So everyone knows what their responsibility is and whether or not they're able to do that.
Any question?
No, it makes sense. It's, I do not envy your need to look through the sublease of maintenance of town property of subcommittees and, I mean.
Well, I should have these documents already, the fact that I can't find them, you know, it doesn't mean they don't exist, that's why then I have to reach out to Situate Historical Society and say, hey, what do you have that I don't have?
And there should be other towns that do this, that we can say,
Alright.
give us a copy of these, let's take a look at it.
It's a great stewardship program that's unfortunately only available to DCR properties. It's very interesting.
I didn't mean to be glib, it was just.
No, it's,
Any comments from the audience? Right.
Also, just to say, more than happy to work with you on it, and the only document that I'm aware of, because I did do a little checking, is a memorandum of agreement or understanding that was signed in 2006.
Well, that's
But it's a
12
very,
years younger than the one I have now.
but it's very general, it doesn't get into specifics as to maintenance and documenting maintenance. Maybe mentions maintenance once. So what you say, I think makes total sense, and we'll certainly work with you, see what we can uncover.
they have to something put in there, she talks about maintenance, even though the historic society might be doing the maintenance, it's a public building, so it's still under our bid laws, so you have to put in there that they have to, you know, all take the state bid laws and bidding laws, which means it's just more expensive for us to fix it, they just don't do it themselves.
Right. Can I have a motion?
But I don't even think you need to take a vote, as long as you're okay with me moving forward, I can just move forward.
I say yes.
Okay,
Yes.
Yes.
I didn't think you have an objection, but
Awesome.
I'll make sure. So then we get to the Mordecai Lincoln property, which is just another issue in this same realm, is that we now have another historical property, we do not have an agreement with anyone for the care and maintenance of that property, and we don't yet have, the select board has not yet decided future uses for the property and future plans for the property, but there's all kinds of grant applications and other applications being filed that I'm seeing that are making me nervous, because one, there's potential financial liability for the town, and two, the select board hasn't endorsed them. So I just wanted to,
I think we're gonna have a meeting with Concom and everybody else involved to get
on the same page.
everything kind of on the same page with the property.
I mean, the short term, there's money at town meeting because we're incurring expenses for heating and maintaining it. We also know there's some trees up there that have to come down. It's too close to the house, so the one just to the left has got the driveway is completely diseased. But as Nancy said, conservation's over here, historic commission's over here, and yet no one's come into this board and said, hey, this is what we're thinking, this is the road we're going down, what do you think? So I think that has to happen probably later on this spring, early summer.
Lorraine, can you put that on the agenda for after town meeting?
What is the topic?
Just to get historical, Concom, maybe planning in for the Mordecai Lincoln property? Just 1 second. Any other?
Yeah, I talked to Doug Smith today, he wasn't wanted to be here, I think fear is passing, I'll let you do it.
Jim Glinski, member of the Historical Commission. As Doug said, I think in some of his conversations, we are going to meet with somebody for preservation in Massachusetts at the Port Covington property next week on Wednesday. They're a nonprofit organization. I found out about them by attending a meeting of the eastern region of the Massachusetts Historical Commission. And Jeff, I think Don knows his name, had a person who was Preservation Massachusetts lead man in eastern Massachusetts. He's based out of Plymouth. So he seems enthusiastic about meeting with us next Wednesday. He thinks the property is exciting to look at. And I think the Historical Commission, speaking for them, through myself, feels it's one of the most important historical properties in the town at the moment. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And there are lots of different ideas about what should be done with the property, but we're hoping that Jeff next week, after visiting the property, can give us some options to consider about what to do with the property. And I think that's what Doug communicated in his email.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, we just had an article from CPC that wanted to put 13 parking spaces there. So before we proceed with that, I think we all have to get together, figure out what the use of the property is going to be, what we want the outcome to be, and get all the interested parties involved. So
Should include rec in that conversation.
Yep. And I'm sure.
Recreation.
Yeah. Great. Well, we'll open up to more people. I'm sure we're forgetting some, but just to put it on the docket. Yeah.
I'm Jack Whitaker, 594 Country Way in Scituate. Member of the Historic Commission, and also more recently, the Historic Commission member on the CBC. And where the Historic Commission is going, we had a placeholder before the CBC and before town meeting for substantial money for the renovation and update of that property. And Doug and the committee decided to back off a bit, get in professional consultation and so forth. But we plan to be coming in the fall, hopefully the fall town meeting, with a major article for CBC funds to get the ball rolling on that property. Now, what I see a little bit of, and is a sudden lack of people talking to each other. I go on to CPC and I see this Conservation Commission project with the big parking lot and the driveway that the rest of us didn't know much about. And definitely what you all just said is, I think, very badly needed. Everyone come together and kind of share their ideas and what they're working on. Yeah, and just want to reemphasize that.
Super. Yeah, I think that's, there's been a ton of ideas of what that property could be used for, and I think we don't want to go at it haphazardly. We want to have the big picture plan in place.
Yes.
Great.
So
Go ahead.
So the final thing under this subheading is whether or not we put out a bid for appraisal and auctioneer of the contents of the property, and we didn't get any bids. So we have an online auction house already, not the one that we talked about earlier for village property, but for just contents. Does the board want to move forward with that? Also, Scituate Historical had made a request at the beginning of this if they could rehome some of the artifacts that are in Mordecai Lincoln's other properties. If that's something that the board is going to entertain, is the board going to put a restriction on whether it may be other town-owned properties or anything on any historical property that's under the control of Scituate Historical Society? So you can decide on this tonight, not decide on this, and have that conversation as part of the bigger conversation, but that is something that needs to be decided, because there is plenty of content in that building that is not of any historical value, which you may be able to auction to somebody. And then there are some things that you might want to see rehomed to another historical asset in town, but if it gets rehomed to a non-town owned historical asset, what type of documentation do you want in place for that?
Yeah, I just walked through it a couple weeks ago, and there's a ton of stuff in there. And the whole barn was an antique shop, so, I think someone with some knowledge has to go through that and see what's.
Well, we had 3 appraisers come up and none of them did all the work.
No, well, it's probably a daunting task, because there's so much stuff. But, I'd like to get the rest of the board here before we decide on the next step for that, but, and
I think there's no reason not to do it all at once.
I don't think there's a rush.
No, I wanted just to start the conversation because this is part and parcel of the whole historical property issue and wrapping it all up.
No, I have not been in Warren, so I don't know.
Well, there's a lot of stuff.
Jackie, last comment?
Yeah, I think the Historic Commission and myself, a lot of experience in antiques and restoration of antiques, particularly with analysis of them. You need to proceed with caution because among all that stuff might be some very significant items. And just one quick example, when I walked through the house, there's a large round rock sitting on the, I believe it's the living room mantle. And it says Mordecai Lincoln House. And what that is the Native American binding stone. I would guess from about 1,000 years ago. I would guess it was found in that carpet. All right, and it's the sort of thing, it's, you know, you need to be very, very careful, actually to sift out the really good, significant things that are there. And you may want to put them in other historic houses here. You might want to give them to a museum. You just don't know. Right. So I would suggest a committee of some of us that are somewhat knowledgeable about this stuff, that we go through it and see if we can identify the gems that are in there before we just sell it all on the internet or something.
Good, I agree.
Okay, that's just my 2 cents, but I think that would be a prudent.
Great. Yeah, I think the Historical Society and Commission should, you guys are gonna know, your members are gonna know more about it than me walking through there. So I think that would be a good start for you guys to identify pieces that you think have historical significance.
If someone could appoint a committee, I'd be happy to try that committee if you want.
Well, I'll leave it to your 2 committees to come up with.
But maybe Gigi might be part of that too, actually.
All right, thank you, Nancy. So we won't vote on that now. The next discussion and vote is for the warrant and special meeting town meeting. So we need to vote the operating budget, and we need to vote a change to Article 7. That's it.
That's all.
We have to talk about it.
Okay. Let's start with Article 7 first.
Yeah.
I know it's on the screen. So the contract that you awarded earlier in the meeting those funds need to be borrowed. At the time that the budget was set, it was not known that that project was gonna go forward as a general obligation borrowing. It was hoped that it would go as clean water trust borrowing, which is not proceeding that way and cannot proceed that way now. So there needs to be short-term interest added to the budget. This project is going to start expending funds in fiscal '23. So a note has to be issued in this fiscal year, and we can't run it for more than a year. So when talking with Pam and looking at cash flow, this would run a note from somewhere to about November, December, about $82,000 in short-term interest costs. So the board needs to decide how it wants to approach this. We're going to have to increase the sewer budget for fiscal '24 for short-term interest. We can do it in April, amend the article now and increase it by 82,000, and you can discuss it as part of your rate setting. The long-term debt schedule for sewer, as in your backup, drops off significantly in '25. It's '24 where we have the problem. We were not expecting to have the short-term interest. As you know, their budget was already cut $200,000 to $300,000, and we were already looking at significant, well, I won't say significant, but a material rate increase. So in order to make the rates appropriate, you're probably talking another 3 to 4% rate increase to accommodate this interest.
So this is interest on the $3 million project we just,
Short-term interest, yeah, until we can get into.
what's the short-term interest rate?
Probably 4.5 to 5.5.
Really?
Yeah. It's ugly. And with what came out today with the Fed, could get out of there.
So what was the bump?
Yeah.
What was the bump that was for this next fiscal year in the rates?
We were looking, I think, for the budget that is being voted into place, 7 to 8% rate increase.
So this would put it to 11 to 12
You're talking probably a 10 to 12% rate increase.
for $82,000.
But they're not gonna borrow the full $3 million this year, are they?
Their cash flow has them mostly expended through December. They're gonna do a ton of work over the summer.
But that's,
The other option for the board to consider, Nancy will throw something at me,
And notice I didn't say it, I'm letting him say it.
is at the November town meeting, we would use retained revenues, because this is just a bump for 1 year, so rather than raise the sewer rates to cover this, then next year we have funds because the debt's coming off, we would do a one-time infusion of retained earnings to cover that bump, then the next year, because otherwise we'll be raising the rates, and then we won't need it for that purpose for the following year, so.
what's the retained earnings at?
Um,
4 or 5?
I don't think it's that high after the capital plan, I want to say it's more around 3.
And what's your objection to that?
My objection always is
It's not
using
good
one-time revenues.
It's not good budgeting to use one-time revenues, but this is not a recurring cost.
Okay, so what are you asking us?
Do you want to amend the Article 7 to include the $82,000 and then we're going to have to address it in the rates? Or do you wish to wait until the fall, adjust it in the fall, and then either you'll have already set your rates? So we'll have this discussion again when we talk about rates in June, and you can decide whether you wanna deal with it in the fall with rates or deal with it in the fall with retained earnings.
What do you guys think?
I wish we didn't add in that extra truck. We're gonna have the money, one truck,
It's not considered.
retained earnings.
No, it's.
No, I know.
But I would say let's wait till the fall.
And that's what I would do. Otherwise, we're bumping the rates and then it's gonna.
And if something better happens with chemical costs, electricity costs,
Have to deal with.
and then we'll know for certain, we'll issue the ban and know what the rate's gonna be and what the interest is specifically for it.
You good with that?
Yeah.
That was easy, wasn't it?
All right, now let's go to Article 4, the operating budget. So did a great job with the presentations. We met with all the department heads. We listened to their concerns. We asked a lot of questions. We worked with the financial forecast, which I think just had a bump up from cherry sheet numbers that came in. And I think as we discussed in the very beginning of the budget, that we wanted to have an impact and have some funds available for us to make whatever improvements we want to. So that's what we wanted to discuss tonight once you went over,
So the big changes in financial forecast, obviously state aid went up, the governor's budget. We increased the local receipt, the investment income by a little bit because we're getting more for our money than we were before. For the first time, we've estimated some room occupancy tax. Not a whole lot, but some because we have a couple of years now of data on that. The other big increase was the Plymouth County retirement assessment. I believe that was originally 14%. 14% for next year, and then was gonna be somewhere in the 2 or 3% range the following year. So Pam Abbatabi gets all the credit for this. With her treasurer's group, she took the lead on this to have Plymouth County do a smoothing. Take it down some this year, so it'll be more next year. And that saved us almost $270,000 on that assessment, which you see there in the plus. We did have a couple of increases. Our state assessments were up, our library assessments were up. And then the other big change is last year, or this year, you remember we did shared HVAC position and bump the line on the shared costs. Mr. Goodrich was at the meeting. He was very persuasive, talking to the school department about our need for additional resources in the police department. Their need, they've talked about it with Chief Thompson for additional resources in the schools. So we agreed, the financial forecast agreed to put a school resource officer above the line, which gives them the school resource officer in the summer and the winter time. And then we have that officer in the summertime, but we'll be short now because of the lack of the permanent commitments of the part-timers that we have. So all the credit for that goes to Mr. Goodrich. He did a great job with that. At the bottom line, we got about 550,000 additional revenue, 183,000 of that is the town's. Nancy and I are recommending that go into contractual bargaining. We have 2 contracts set up. We want to make sure we have sufficient funds to fund those, the police and the DPW and highway. But in the end, there's 183,104 additional dollars that have not been allocated in the current budget.
Great. So can you explain what Pam did again? So it was gonna be 14 and 2?
So the projection was gonna be like 14% this year and 2% next year, so now it's
like 10 and 8.
10 and 8.
Okay.
So, which is, we plan on 8% anyways, because that's what they've said, plan on 8% a year, so we plan on that anyway.
So these, and also these contracts that were going to be up, we knew about that during the budget process as well.
Yeah.
Where do those, the existing estimate, budget for the collective bargaining?
There's some in the lines, but given what we're seeing, there'd be some of the police lines and some of the DPW lines, but it's not gonna be sufficient to cover what we think we have to do.
How do we budget if it wasn't sufficient?
We just estimate based on what we've done with some of the other contracts.
All right, well, great. Well, it's good that we have a surplus here to work with. I can start the conversation from 10,000 feet from what we're seeing. I think we have more ideas that need to come together, but there were 2 topics, at least 2 topics that came up consistently with us that we want to pursue. And one of them is kind of an enforcement compliance role for conservation, planning, zoning, those committees that came in and said, hey, we've got this stuff going on, but you don't have time to go in and actually make sure that things are being done properly. We have citizens complaining that things are being done improperly and stuff, and we feel that there's a need for that in town. And the other component of it is some sort of communication system, person, service that can help get communication out to the community in total. We had another example just the other night where somebody didn't know that there was, what was the example? We didn't even know.
The statute.
Oh, the statute. You've never heard of the statute. Never heard of the, water treatment plant. Never heard of the park at Pier 44. So somehow we want to make some sort of concerted effort to find a way to use new channels and new resources to get information out to the public in a different format that people are hearing from. I think we don't quite know, I mean, we're kind of throwing that back on you to some degree to say, okay, go to your departments and figure out how, what do you actually need? How are you gonna do this? Do we need a consultant? Do we need to hire somebody? Do we hire a service? I think we all agree that for the communication aspect, that a PR firm or someone with those type of skill sets can just be contracted to do it. It's not an employee. But the other one, we don't know. We don't know if do we need another body sitting in there to do this, or is there some sort of company that can provide this service of compliance to our, to our bylaws and our needs. So I think the best that we can do now is to ask you to allocate a lump sum of money to these, and then you take the project away and meet with the people that are necessary to figure out how do we actually implement it.
So 2 different things. Okay, if we want to put money in for a PR firm, we can put money into the select board budget, town administrator's budget. A lot of the towns out there use John Guilfoyle, who does that stuff. One of my only issues with that is he uses the same basic methods that we use to push information out, right? He uses the internet, he uses Facebook, he uses things like that. So I'm not sure that gives us what we're looking for in terms of reaching more people. If they're not paying attention, then they're not paying attention. But I did have a quote for that last year. I have to go back and find it. It is expensive on a contract basis if you just want to have them on kind of a retainer. But as a case-by-case basis, it's probably something we could put some money in there. On the second one, on the first one, depending on how you want to look at it.
Well, let's stay on that one for a second. So I think, I don't know that we want to use somebody that's doing the same things as us. I think this may be more of a pilot to try and think out of the box, to try and figure out how to do things differently, to see if we can have that more transparency, more information channel to people. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think part of it too, it's both. It's not just external communications, but we've heard again tonight, also internal as well. That some folks may feel that there's, I hate the corporate word, silos of information, but whether or not that is still true or not, that I know, I mean, this is, I do, you can have systems set up both internally and externally to make sure that everyone's talking to each other and just kind of make things easier for folks so they don't have to go to Facebook and other things. It's not just.
Yeah, no, and that's almost something we could try to hire an intern or get someone from a local college, university to come in and look at those processes. Would pay them, something, because I don't like people that come work for free.
We could, I mean, we have 1,000 people on our town email list, it's 19,000, 29,000 people come here, so we're missing a lot of people for where the information is. And there just could be efforts that no one has the bandwidth to do, and if we wanna set an intern loose to say, I wanna go from 1,000 to 5,000 on our email list, and just have make sure that those avenues are increasing. I think having a professional start that process, and then the intern can take over and say, great, here are the email templates. Here's everything all set up, now we can run with it. That's the way I see the world.
So, just in tonight, in the meeting that you're efficiently running tonight, I wrote down the sewer information sheet. There's a lot of people to be affected by the sewer. We got the lighthouse, that information, we got the elections, and we had the town meeting. Just tonight are things that I would see, we might put them out there, but we're not putting them out effectively, because it's after that. It's like this, you need to reach people where they are. And then I wrote across the top of my page, who needs to know? We don't ask that question enough. With Bob Moore Connected, we don't stop and say, oh shit, we should, oh goodness, we should,
Oh shit.
oh shit. We should have all of these people in the same room before we make decisions, and not because it's,
I mean, our current systems require people to reach out to us and say, send me information. And we actually had this conversation my first year here, that how do we reach all these summer people that don't ask when we have a disaster in the summer? And the methods that we use to send information during a disaster all require power, right? They just call cell phone so how do we do that? So to break yours down into two different things, right? How do we reach more people? And then once we have a bigger audience to reach, how do we make our message more effective that we send out? But the weakness really of the system is you have to sign up for our emails. You have to make sure you're on your code red. And a lot of the summer people, they're probably not on those. How do we get them to sign up?
It's more of a pilot. I mean, our current employees do a great job with what they can, but they don't have the bandwidth to look for this new software, this new function, or this new company that's this great new way of doing stuff. And I think that's what we've got to look for is kind of trying another channel. What's a different way than just going to Facebook and posting stuff and posting a meeting here and.
Is there a sign up at the golf course? Is there a sign up at every store? Is there usually part of these budgets, there's an advertising to say you gotta sign up. As part of that budget, they're advertising to those people because they know people who are Airbnb, they get that money give those emails to the EDC or other, there's things that no one has the bandwidth and people do a great job getting it on Facebook and other stuff, but you're right, there's a gazillion other.
So I don't think I think we all agree that there's a need. I don't think we know the answer. I don't think we're gonna say, let's allocate $40,000 to company ABC to do this. I think we just wanna get the money in the budget so that we can have the time and somebody will take the reins of it to try and find out what that channel is.
That's exactly what it is. It's a dedicated person to chew on these problems to find better solutions without taxing our existing staff.
But I bet if we went to Seth, he may have other things. I bet if we went to Mike, he may have other things. I bet Lorraine would say, geez, I wish I had 5 more hours in the day because I could do this also. So I think, so that's one of the items that we want to do.
So if you have 5 more hours in the day, I don't think you'd spend it doing all work stuff. Spend it with your family. But anyways, I mean, I think you can put another 10, 15 grand in our technical service and that would get us started. I don't wanna take all this money and we just need to have someone come back, take that money, find out what we need to do. And then come back and put a project before you as opposed to, well, here's just a bunch of money, go figure out how to spend. Does that make sense?
I think we're gonna allocate more than that. Because we actually wanna we don't wanna have somebody come back with us and say, you know, here's the 10 grand and tell you what to do. We actually wanna do it. So,
It's circular.
yeah, so that's,
Yeah, but I mean, I'm telling you not to give me money to spend, I know that's kind of weird, but I think we need to come up with a definite scope of work of what you want to see and what it's gonna cost. And it's not that far in the future, we'll get the money in July, the town meeting's back again in November. So you give someone a project for the summer to come back and say, okay, how do we do these things? Reach more people, reach them in a more effective manner. Whatever, you know, those are the 2 big things, there's a couple other small things. You have July, August, and halfway through September, come back and tell us what to do. And then that goes on the town meeting for the fall, saying, okay, this is how we fix these things. We take the money then and we do it. I don't think it's a person working here, I think some other.
yeah, I think we're gonna hire a company that's gonna give us, has done it before, it's gonna tell us what to do.
Yeah, but that company's not, it shouldn't be $40,000, it just shouldn't be.
Well, I think you're right, it's 2 steps. So one is the assessment, right? So, and figure out what are we doing, how are we doing it, where can we do it better? And there are companies that will do that and it will cost not $40,000. But you will, at the end of the day, just have recommendations that need to be implemented. And what we're concerned about is making sure that the funds are there to implement changes, because that's where we want to be. So are you saying, and so if we don't put it all in the fiscal 24 budget, are we now then postponing the implementation to 2025?
No, because you give them a deadline to get to, Scituate has a fall town meeting every year.
Yeah, but we don't wanna push it up to the fall. We want it in the budget. We want it.
But that's what I'm saying, is you're saying put the assessment in this budget and then come back for more money for implementation in the fall.
Yeah, but you would be taking that out of free cash. You wouldn't be putting it in the budget.
You can still appropriate it in the budget at that point, if you have available funds.
So I think we're not doing an assessment of what we need to do. We're hiring a firm to do it. But someone's gonna do the due diligence of saying, okay, this firm is a communication PR firm, and they're gonna do this, and they're gonna say, give me your messages, give me your issues, and I'm gonna go through these channels that I already have in place and do it. And then we're gonna have to assess it over a year and say whether it's working. Not somebody come up and say, oh, do an email program, or do this and do that. I think we have to hire somebody that's gonna do it.
So Guilford, they work with a lot of municipalities. And just today, I was talking to a police department, just my day job, and they use them. And I said, so how do you use these guys? What's the leverage? Because they do a fabulous job in this department. And they have this protocol where they know that, okay, this is police. So when there's something big happens in town, it's public facing. These guys, they know, they call them immediately and they do the press release and they handle all of that stuff. So they have it all set up. And I don't see why, like, if there's this meeting, we say, make sure the PR firm knows that we need to get the sewer, lighthouse, and election information out. Go take care of that. And then, you know, and maybe they are put, maybe it takes time off of Lorraine's plate, if she's not posting that stuff. I don't know how it all works out. But we have a need to get more information out there.
I mean, maybe that firm's the first step.
And they know
It's
how to
also, to me, it's the crisis communication too, something we don't know. So groundwater hits, some of that happens in turn. Kevin and you should not be worried about getting the word out, communication to the residents, what's going on. You should be focusing on fixing the pipe, not so that PR great, they know really get everything out, so the focus can be there. But yeah, I mean, and then even put on stuff like guaranteed placements. 3 hits in some regional paper for tourism. Like there's no one here that they pay on that's what you're paying for, to make sure that we're in the next South of Boston magazine, best of whatever. I mean, right, there's a gazillion things.
We're going to Smithsonian, does that count? I mean, but again, now you're talking two different things, right? Crisis communication is one thing.
Right.
Yeah.
That's one thing. The day-to-day information, stuff about the lighthouse, stuff about the sewer. I see the stuff that Guilfoyle puts out, but I don't think they have, it's gonna come out wrong, a special way of putting it out that it reaches more people.
No, but they have capacity. It's more a capacity issue.
But there's, again, back to what we were talking about, how do we reach more people? I don't think they necessarily reach more people. They do the second part, how do we make our message to those people more effective?
Well, we'll let them come in and talk to us and hear what they have to say.
Yeah, I'll have to go back. Do you remember what the quote was, Andrew?
There's like $3,500 a month.
Yeah, something like that.
No, I mean, and I think you have to, because there are other firms that will do everything. We'll do the crisis, we'll do the outreach, and do the internal. And they'll go, most of those guys will go quarterly. If you need to.
And we use them on the Coast Guard station.
Yeah.
And they did a great job getting everything set up, getting the press all lined up, getting everything ready to go, and then while we were doing our press conference, you know, there was some Red Sox story or something, and we were done, nothing, you know, nothing made the paper, so.
Well, we're gonna allocate some money to start that thought process and that direction. Whether we talk to these people, talk to other firms, yeah, you may have a couple of people in mind that we can have come in and talk to us about their services.
Yeah.
Just a quick, I have to. It's tangential question. The replacement for planning director. It's been a while, I know you sent the draft, so is there anything in that job description that would blend into overseas communication?
No, it could be added.
And what's your thought about, when you're thinking of posting that position?
Probably, I sent the job description to you today. Late in the day. Probably before the end of the fiscal year, we'll post that, we wanna have some for next year, but that, we're looking again for more of an administrator than what we've had, which has been uber planners.
Which is, I know that's what you're saying, the reason I asked that question is there needs to be a point person in town. Because if you get the very best firm outside, someone has to be the person that's their point of person and coordinating this internal stuff. So that might be, suck up a whole person's time if you had it internal. But it would be nice to know that if we were gonna have somebody that we had the mechanism in place internally to make sure it worked. We got the bang for our buck, as it were.
We could add something to that.
Okay. And the second component is the enforcement compliance kind of role.
And don't know, I think again, that's just allocating money and saying, Jim, go talk to all these departments that are saying that they're not able to do it and figure out what do we need to get it done, whether it's a body, a hire, another consulting firm, 10 more inspectors or whatever it happens to be.
Yeah, we talked about this, they came in last year looking for a position, a combined planning and conservation position. And they didn't gel, conservation was looking for one thing, planning was looking for something else. So they were told to go back and come up with what they were looking for. They have not. Problem with enforcement, planning, conservation type of person, they're two different enforcements. Planning is almost, I talked to the chair of the planning board, she's like, no, we don't need help in our office. It has to go to building for zoning enforcement. That's not the same type of enforcement that conservation was looking for. And then when conservation was in, they were talking, well, maybe someone to oversee conservation land, which is a totally different person. If you look at Concord has a guy with a hard hat and chainsaw. Lincoln has someone who thinks big thoughts and writes big plans, so they're two different people.
So we need two people?
We don't know what they need, because they haven't told us yet.
Well, we know we're not doing the enforcement that we need to. We know that zoning needs somebody to do more project management, more boots on the ground, more going out and seeing what people are doing. But they don't have the bandwidth to do it. And I bet if we said, hey, there's a person I can hire, they'll come up with something.
But you have a full-time and a part-time inspectors. Do you have a third person, or do we increase the hours for the second person, the second position, have them do more enforcement with that?
That's what we're gonna have you tell us. But there's gonna be money in the budget, so whatever you tell us to do, it'll, maybe we can activate.
Can't just have, if it's going to be for there, it has to be in that budget, if it's gonna be for there, it has to be in that budget, it can't just be his money.
Well, we can move money. We can put it in the select board's budget and we can move it like we do every other, like we do, like we're
Technical
doing.
services.
Yeah.
No, you can only, if it's in your budget over here, it can only be done
Town meeting.
by the end of the year, right?
Yeah, we're doing 10 of them, in a month. So those are the two things, the two initiatives that.
I guess we have to go back to town meeting to move it, why don't we just go back to town meeting to approve it as opposed to, it just seems like we're putting the cart before the horse, it's.
Well, we've identified the problem, and we've heard it for years, that, planning does their work, zoning goes, and somebody starts building, and then sometimes people are like, yeah, I'm supposed to do X, Y, and Z, and they're like, I'm gonna do Y and Q too while we're at it.
But again, are they in violation of
Permit.
building, zoning, are they in violation of the permit?
Permit.
Then that's the planning board, and the consultant and the engineer who would go on and say, wait a second, you're not building what was approved. Whereas the building inspector is, this is a zoning violation.
Well, again, you're gonna have to figure that out. You're gonna have to get together with those employees and figure out, we may need 3 people over the next 3 years, but the right first person is this one. Because we know there's a problem. We know that we're not enforcing the things that we should. So you've gotta figure out who, that zoning is the first person, I need to make this a full-time person instead of a part-time person. And I need a part-time person in Concord. We don't know, that's what, we're kind of throwing it at you, but we want it to happen. We want it to happen now. And if we don't allocate the money, then it's not gonna happen, the money's gonna go somewhere else.
Where do you see the biggest need among those offices? I guess I'll back up, do you think there is a problem?
Yes and no. I think there has to be some more efficiency with our current organization. But I think probably the one that I get the most complaints about would be zoning enforcement. My neighbor's doing this, or this is happening, or there's construction equipment parked here. And a lot of those are small things, but someone has to go and say, hey, you can't be parking your 18-wheeler on the street here, you can't have your excavation equipment, you can't be running your business out of your house. Those are little small things. In terms of conservation, it gets more complicated. What are they enforcing? Planning's a lot of stormwater issues, but we have engineers that are supposed to be doing the stormwater issues. I know Karen Joseph, Karen would never want someone else to go out and look at a project to make sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. That's what Karen does, she's very good at it. But they were not looking for additional staff, and when I talked to the chair of the planning board, she was talking more zoning enforcement than she was working planning. Those are things that I get complaints about.
Sure.
You know, my neighbor's doing what's going on, even from the board, you know, hey, I drove by, they cut down all these trees, what the hell's going on? Sorry, a tough day for you. You know, what's going on out here? And I could send someone out, we gotta find out what's going on and X, Y, Z. I think getting that other position filled is gonna help. If we fill it with the right person, it's gonna help break down those silos that we're talking about, because in that position before, we've had Uber planners, not administrators. I think that position, we've talked to all the building, conservation, planning, we've talked to them all and coming up with that new job description. I think they all said the same thing. We don't need someone to tell us how to do our jobs, we need someone to help facilitate doing our job.
And that person's being paid out of planning, right?
Yeah, planning.
So why wouldn't we put some extra funds in the technical services for planning?
Because I can't pay a salary out of technical services.
But you can hire a contractor.
Yeah.
I mean, you can hire, yes,
I'm on the same page as Jim. I mean, we have a budget process by which in the budget process you request new personnel. You have requests for 8 police officers. You do not have a request for this position. They don't have a job description. Neither of the 3 departments put in a request. So I'm just stymied as to this conversation when you have an identified need from a department that went out and did all the work about, this is how much it's gonna cost, this is what I need. If this is how you're going to create positions, how are you going to manage going forward creating positions?
I guess what we're saying is we're not saying create a position, we're saying solve a problem. And we want the money available to solve the problem, but we don't know the answer to it.
And 2 years ago, they did request the position and they gave it to them, and they didn't request it because they just thought it wouldn't be granted anyway, so why request something they're gonna say no to?
But they disagree on what the position should be. One's talking about low-level enforcement that you can get a retiree to do. Another was talking about high-level $80,000-$90,000 administrative work.
Unless, if there's a disagreement, that doesn't negate the problem. So we know there's a problem. I guess part of this, be in our shoes a little bit, right? So we've been raising fees and taxes. We wanna make sure we have the best services possible. We know there's an issue. We know residents complain about some sort of issue. So we're trying to the best of our ability to respond to our neighbors who say, we know there's an issue, we need help, we need to do something. Yeah, this position is one that it's been requested, people know, we hear from others, there's an issue within there. for me personally, it's the way to try to provide better services, maybe it's zoning. I just want to make sure we're giving everyone the most value for their dollar. And if we know that there's some sort of issue, right, we want to address it.
So we've been listening to this for years and years, and people don't put it in the budget for either one of two reasons. They don't think it's gonna pass, or they don't think they have permission to put it in the budget. And I think we're all hearing it loud and clear. This is not, all five of us agree 100% on this. So we'll let you guys figure out the details.
I guess the issue would be, if you wanna put more, in the select board technical service over here, so I can start doing that PR stuff, then do that. The rest of the money can be in contract bargaining, because it's there. And if you put it over here, you're gonna move it over here, if you put it over here, you're gonna move it over here, so it's in a place where we can get it. Because if I need it for contract bargaining, I'm gonna have to go get it someplace else anyways.
Well, we want an enforcement person hired.
But again, Tony, it has to be in the right place, right?
Well, then let's start in zoning.
So we talked about, you just said, if it's gonna be over here, we can move the money. So if the money's just in contractual bargaining, you can move the money to where we think we're gonna do it.
But if it's in contractual bargaining, you can use it for anyone that contracts the company. I think zoning is a great place to start. I think we would all agree that zoning could use help with enforcement. And whether it's a retiree or a full-time person or a part-time going to full-time, I think we know that we're not doing it as well as we can.
I'm just talking about dump up the number.
That's what we're talking about, 4-year-olds now.
Well, we don't need the answer now.
We kind of do.
Well, we're gonna allocate money and then you guys can solve the problem.
Right, but I'm trying to come up with a number
Yeah.
to allocate, that's
Well,
what.
we got the number. We're gonna allocate $100,000 to those two initiatives of the 183. Which is less than the $250,000 that I asked you for before we started this whole process.
Well, you asked for $250,000 when I submitted the budget to you, it was already done at that point. So there was about 100 at that point, now it ended up moving back, ended up 183.
Yeah.
When it all fell out, but that's just all the moving pieces.
Right, so we think that that's, and I don't know how it's gonna be broke down between, if it's $3,500 a month, the communication aspect of it could be 40,000 of it and 60,000 over for a potential hire. We're kind of leaving that up to you to figure out what sources they're gonna be, whether it's 70-30 or.
Right, the bottom line is, till we figure out how to solve the problem.
Right.
It may end up getting moved somewhere else, because, but.
Don't have to go on my contractual, so I don't like.
And you can still do inspections. And contract, but
This would be.
probably technology.
Technical services, yeah.
Sidebar.
No, I know you guys have to figure out where it goes and.
Well, you put half in our technical services line and half in inspections. Part-time inspections, that's what we have to do. And move it if I needed to move one to the other.
We may find out at some point in time that it's really 75 that we need, not, I don't know. But we think that that's.
Right, but we need to vote a budget, so I can put that money somewhere tonight.
Right.
And if I put too much in this one and not enough in this one, as you said, Tony, we can move it at some point, but.
I think the board's feeling is, we throw it all in collective bargaining, we know we have this need and we gotta go get it, we'd rather start with it here, and if we don't need it,
Right, let's, I put half in our technical, in the
Yeah.
technical services for us, and half in part-time inspection.
I think that's fine with me. Does that sound?
Sure.
Yeah. And then put the other 83 in.
Collective bargaining.
And then once you said you're doing the police budget,
This would be that we, yeah.
right? So when we figure out the police budget, we've got to address Chief Thompson's needs for the officers as well. Right? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way to add 7 officers within the context of the budget, there's just not.
No, but over time, we've got to get some plan in place that says, figure out what those needs are, if they're real, and if we need a couple more people, we'll have to figure out how we're gonna handle that over the next couple of years. Right? I mean, that's just common sense. So, are we all good with that? Yeah, fine. All right, so let's do that.
So they need to put the budget with those 2 amendments. So you need a motion to approve my budget with the 3 amendments that you have.
Well,
Do you guys wanna,
I think your motion says with because the forecast amendments as well.
yes. And to allocate the additional 183, and then we just amend that.
Yeah, to move the 3 places that you just spoke about.
The 83,104, the contractual bargaining, 52, town administrator or town administrator technical services.
Yeah.
Town administrator technical services, 50,000 to, building part-time services.
Part-time, sorry.
and we just, computer log off.
Which call Nancy part-time,
Personal services.
personal services,
Salaries.
Salaries.
It's also part-time salaries.
part-time salary.
Move to approve the town administrator recommended FY 24 general fund operating budget, Article 4 as proposed with the amendments. Share costs as voted by the Financial Forecast Committee at the February 28th, 2023 meeting, to allocate an additional $83,104 in available revenue to the contractual bargaining line 1123,532.530400. And an additional $50,000 to the building inspector part-time services line item.
Part-time salaries.
Salary service line item. And an additional $50,000 to the select board's technical services line item.
The town administrators, where do you want it?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, to the town
administrator technical services,
the town administrator technical services line item, excuse me.
Okay.
Second by Ms. Canfield, further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. It's unanimous, 3-0. Thank you, guys. All right. Next topic is new discussion, and the first one was to appoint the TEI committee appointment. We're gonna hold that out so the other 2 select board members are here. Sewer betterment deferral parcel, did we do that?
No, it's a new one.
Okay.
This is a regular resident sewer betterment deferral,
All right.
like we do every year.
Let me just,
Judy, so.
Yeah. do you want to make a motion?
Move to grant a sewer betterment deferral for the current year taxes parcel ID number 14-01-049.
Second by Mr. Goodrich, All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it is unanimous, 3-0. We have a discussion vote of one-day wine and malt license,
Would you like some motion?
please.
Move to approve a one-day wine and malt license for the Knights of Columbus and St. Mary's Parish Center for a private event on Saturday, March 18, 2023, from 5:30 to 8 p.m. And move to approve a one-day wine and malt license for the Knights of Columbus at St. Mary's Parish Center for a private event on Friday, March 31st, 2023, from 5 to 7 p.m.
Second.
Second by Mr. Goodrich, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it is unanimous.
We have great bartenders, I saw.
Oh. All right. Other business, any liaison reports?
I do not.
No.
No. Correspondence, you want?
Correspondence.
No correspondence tonight? Great. Then we can have approval of the minutes.
We accept the minutes for the select board meeting held February 27th, 2023.
Second by Ms. Canfield, further discussion, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
It is unanimous, 3-0. And lastly, can I have a motion to adjourn and sign documents?
So moved.
Second by Mr.
Second.
Goodrich, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it is unanimous. Good night, everybody.